Chapter 1. Regarding the update, it had always been a matter of great concern to everyone. Xiao Fei would like to let everyone know that the update for this book would not be less than 4,000 words per day. Under normal circumstances, it would be 6,000 words per day. Once it was published, there would be more updates. There would be no break in the updates. If there was a break in the updates, Xiao Fei would inform everyone first and then make up for the missing chapters. Those who knew Xiao Fei knew very well that Xiao Fei would never be careless when it came to updates. Xiao Fei could be considered an old author. She had written nearly 10 million words in total. Most of her books were about xianxia and cultivation. Therefore, please don't worry. Xiao Fei did not lack experience, plot, or structure when writing xianxia and cultivation. Her new book was worthy of everyone's trust and support. The time when this new book was released was actually the time when Xiao Fei's child was born. The reason why she chose to release it today was because of this special meaning. I hope that Xiao Fei's new book will be like my child, thriving and achieving glory. As for the system of the new book, everyone can slowly explore it in the book. While maintaining the tradition, there will be no lack of novelty and highlights. The data during the new book's release period is extremely crucial to the growth of a new book. Please support Xiao Fei's new book. If you have time, don't forget to vote for her and leave a comment. That's all for now. I will come here to add more when I have time in the future. Xiao Fei will have to wash her diapers before and after she writes. I hope that everyone will take pity on her and support her. Xiao Fei is very grateful. Chapter 2. In a vast and boundless universe, countless planets formed a vast sea of stars. It was boundless and full of mysteries and unknowns. Among these countless planets, there was a blue planet called Earth. Next to it, there was a star that was emitting flames all over. The humans on Earth called it the sun. The existence of the sun was what allowed the creatures on Earth to exist. The humans on Earth could not imagine that one day they would lose the sun and never see sunlight again. However, this kind of thing happened in the year 2013 of the Earth calendar. It came so suddenly, so without warning, so unbelievable. One afternoon in the summer of 2013, Xiao Lingyu was about to take a nap after eating as usual. However, just as he lay on his bed in his university dormitory, his phone rang. "Hey, lazy pig, come down quickly. I'm waiting downstairs in your dormitory." Xiao Lingyu's girlfriend's voice came from the other end of the phone. Although it was very sweet for Xiao Lingyu, who played World of Warcraft all night last night and ran to the classroom in the morning, not daring to sleep under the eyes of the old professor. This was undoubtedly a call from hell. "Beauty, I've just eaten. Why don't you go eat alone? We can eat together tonight." Xiao Lingyu's expression was sad, but his words were as gentle as possible. It was not that he was afraid of his girlfriend, but he liked her very much and did not want her to be angry if she knew that he played with her all night last night. "No, we have an agreement. During the time we are dating, you have to accompany me to eat every meal. As long as the conditions permit, you can come and watch me eat even if you have eaten." Beep. Xiao Lingyu was helpless. His girlfriend had already hung up the phone. He knew that he could only hold on for a little longer. However, in fact, in his heart, he was both happy and painful. This kind of feeling could not be understood by people who had never been in a relationship. Xiao Lingyu put on the t-shirt he had just taken off. First, he washed his face with cold water, tried to make himself more energetic. Then, he rushed downstairs in the dormitory. However, on the way downstairs, Xiao Lingyu still felt a little dizzy, as if he had not woken up yet. When he reached the dormitory, Xiao Lingyu saw his girlfriend, Gu Xiaoman, who was wearing a white dress and holding 2 books. "What took you so long? I've been waiting for you for a long time. The end of the world didn't come last year. Maybe it will happen this year. You know, some prophecies aren't accurate. There are fluctuations of 1 or 2 years, so we can't waste time. We have to do more meaningful things in our limited lives." Gu Xiaoman walked up and hugged Xiao Lingyu's arm intimately. She was grumbling a little, but she was grinning. She wasn't tall, and even with the exquisite crystal hairpin on her head, she only reached Xiao Lingyu's shoulders. Xiao Lingyu scratched Gu Xiaoman's delicate nose as she shook her head and said, That's all nonsense. You're also a university student. You don't believe in those nonsensical predictions, do you? If the world really ends this year, what would you like to do before you die? Gu Xiaomin asked curiously as he dragged Xiao Lingyu to the cafeteria. The thing I want to do the most is to do you before I die, Xiao Lingyu said with a smirk as he thought about it seriously. He had been dating Gu Xiaomin for more than a year. Unfortunately, Xiao Lingyu had never been able to complete the last step of a relationship between a man and a woman. He had never been able to break through the last barrier. Of course, he had no complaints about this. He felt that this kind of thing should be allowed to happen naturally and not blindly forced. He was also not the kind of man who would fall in love with the intention of tricking a girl into bed. Don't even think about it. You'd better keep the hat of a virgin until the end of the world, Gu Xiaomin said fiercely as she pinched Xiao Lingyu's arm. Then what would you like to do before the end of the world? Xiao Lingyu followed the topic and asked. The two of them were in love. The man was handsome, and the woman was beautiful. As they walked, it could be said that they were the envy of others. This also made Xiao Lingyu feel very proud. Therefore, even though his mental state wasn't very good, he still straightened his back, but his steps were a little shaky. The thing I want to do the most is to hug your arm like this and turn into ashes with you, Gu Xiaomin said very seriously with a face full of happiness. Hey, I see that you're still full of beautiful expectations for the end of the world. Were you disappointed that the end of the world didn't come last year? If the end of the world really happens this year, just don't be scared out of your wits. Xiao Lingyu was a little speechless at his girlfriend's romantic feelings. Just as they were chatting and laughing as they walked to the entrance of the cafeteria, a shadow gradually covered the sun. Everyone raised their heads at the same time and looked up at the sky. The weather in this summer is really unreliable. It changes all of a sudden. Just now, the sun was so hot that it made people want to peel off a layer of skin. Now it's cloudy. There might even be a big rainstorm later, Xiao Lingyu said with a pout. Look, it's a solar eclipse. Xiao Lingyu originally wanted to pull Gu Xiaomin into the cafeteria quickly to avoid being drenched by the sudden rain. However, Gu Xiaomin pointed to the sky and shouted, "What solar eclipse? If there was a solar eclipse, the news would have announced it long ago." Xiao Lingyu raised her head in confusion and looked in the direction of Gu Xiaomin's jade-like finger. She said in surprise, "It really is a solar eclipse. Strange, why isn't there a forecast?" In the sky, the sun that was so bright that it was a little dazzling was gradually being covered, as if someone had covered it with a piece of black cloth. The most important thing was that at this moment, the temperatures seemed to be dropping rapidly, causing everyone to shiver. In just a few seconds, the entire world was plunged into complete darkness. Even though Gu Xiaomin was right beside him, Xiao Lingyu couldn't see her face. It was even darker than being unable to see his own fingers. The entire world fell silent at this moment. It was so quiet that it was a little suffocating. Perhaps it was because no one took it to heart, or perhaps it was because it was too cold outside and the ground was about to freeze. The students at the entrance of the cafeteria ran into the cafeteria one after another, including Xiao Lingyu and Gu Xiaomin. When they arrived at the cafeteria, they still felt very cold. After all, it was noon in the summer, and everyone was wearing very little. There was a large screen hanging on the wall in the cafeteria. At this moment, it was broadcasting the news, reminding everyone not to go out and to wear more clothes. It also said that every place on Earth was currently pitch black, and the temperature was gradually dropping. Gu Xiaomin snuggled tightly in Xiao Lingyu's arms, her entire body shivering. "It's too cold outside. Let me send you back to the dormitory to get you some clothes," Xiao Lingyu said, taking deep breaths. "Okay." Gu Xiaomin nodded obediently. Braving the cold, Xiao Lingyu, who used the light from his phone to illuminate the area, sent Gu Xiaomin back to the dormitory. He even told her not to run around again. Then, he returned to the dormitory and wrapped himself in his blanket. Originally, Xiao Lingyu was about to go to bed, but he was still a little curious and a little worried, so he took out his phone to call his parents. Unfortunately, there was no signal on his phone, and the call could not be made. "What's going on? Is it really the end of the world? Didn't the end of the world already pass last year?" Xiao Yu was a little depressed as he thought about it. At the same time, he sat up on the bed and looked at the sky outside the window. At this moment, his 3 roommates had also returned, but no one said a word. They all wrapped themselves in their blankets and stared blankly at the darkness outside. To be honest, under such circumstances, everyone was a little scared. The lights in the dormitory had already been turned on. In order to relieve the inexplicable nervousness in his heart, a roommate turned on the television. Fortunately, the cable television was still very clear, but all the channels were broadcasting the abnormal weather situation. From the host's ashen expression, everyone could guess that something big was going to happen this time. Less than a minute after the television was turned on, a dazzling flame suddenly appeared in the dark sky again. Although this flame did not bring warmth to everyone, it seemed to be gradually approaching the ground, but it also seemed to be too far away and could not really get close. It was not until nearly 20 minutes later that the flame became clear in everyone's eyes. However, what they could not imagine was that the flame looked like an incomparably huge fire phoenix from its appearance. Its entire body was suffused with fiery light. Its 2 wings that seemed to be able to cover the sky and cover the sun, as well as a few extremely long and elegant tail feathers, were all flowing with golden light. It flew over from the 9th heaven, appearing so noble and elegant that no one dared to have the slightest intention of blasphemy. And behind it, there was a black sky closely chasing after it, like a large black net that wanted to catch birds. "Quick, watch the television!" A roommate shouted loudly. Xiao Yu turned around and looked at the television. The clear image on the television stunned him. It really is a fire phoenix. What's behind it? A roommate asked in disbelief. It seems to be a very, very large piece of black cloth. Behind the black cloth, it seems to be the sun. Another roommate said in shock. Xiao Yu looked out of the window again. Indeed, behind the fire phoenix, there was a circle of brilliant white light surrounding the pitch-black cloth. At the same time, everyone felt that the temperature was rapidly rising. Ladies and gentlemen, please pay attention. The sun is approaching the Earth. The Earth's temperature is continuously rising. The host's anxious and panicked voice sounded from the television. How could this be? Xiao Yu was dumbstruck. The fire phoenix did not continue to approach the Earth. Instead, it suddenly stopped, turned around, and flew toward the black cloth. And the black cloth slowly shrank, finally revealing a black dragon of unknown length. That's right, on the television screen, there was a long dragon that was completely black and exuding a black mist. It was facing off against the fire phoenix from a distance. Not long after, they began to fight. Bursts of flames spewed out of the fire phoenix's mouth, but they were extinguished by the waves of black air. The battle between the fire phoenix and the black dragon was taking place in the void between the Earth and the Moon, and it was affecting the Earth as well. Earthquakes and volcanic eruptions are occurring all over the world. The most powerful tsunami in history. The glaciers in the North and South Poles have completely melted, but the seawater is continuously evaporating. Rivers all over the world have stopped flowing, and riverbeds have collapsed. China's Yangtze River and Yellow River are also affected. Chapter 3. A powerful creature that only existed in legends had actually appeared in front of everyone's eyes so vividly. Everyone in the world was shocked beyond words. The fire phoenix's entire body was bathed in flames. Every time its beautiful and gorgeous wings flapped, a golden flame that resembled a nebula whizzed out. It was like a surging river of fire. The black dragon's body could only be measured in terms of length. Its entire body seemed to be cast from black steel, giving people the feeling that its entire body was filled with explosive power. If it was said that it could destroy mountains and split the earth, no one would doubt it. However, it had a pair of blood-red dragon eyes, which made it look a little evil. What was strange was that the fire phoenix was originally flying towards Earth, but when it was not too far away from Earth, it suddenly stopped and turned around. It seemed that it was only to alarm Earth and not to spread the disaster to Earth. Even though their battlefield was far away from Earth, Earth was still greatly affected. However, this effect was not fatal. The most important thing was that the sun, which had always maintained a constant distance from Earth, was gradually approaching Earth. With the sun's high temperature, everything on Earth would probably be burned into nothingness, even if it did not get too close to Earth. Although the host on the television was shocked, he still kept persuading the people to remain calm. He said that the governments of various countries were actively dealing with it, but in the face of such a disaster, it was no longer something that could be solved by science and technology. The battle in the starry sky continued, and the temperature on Earth continued to rise. Large-scale and unstoppable fires were raging everywhere in the world. Anyone could see that destruction was inevitable, so some people who had recovered from their shock and despair began to walk together, praying for a miracle and the appearance of a savior. Even more people reunited with their loved ones. After another hour, even the host had to sadly tell everyone that as the sun was getting closer and closer to Earth, all living things on Earth would be burned to ashes in half an hour at most. However, most people were unwilling to believe this cruel dreamlike reality. They were still in a daze, praying. Suddenly, two earth-shaking dragon roars rang out across the land of China. The sound actually spread to every corner of the land of China. The scene on the television changed. Two dragons with only bones left rose from the ground, roaring and roaring, baring their fangs and brandishing their claws as they charged towards the blazing sun in the sky. As they flew into the sky, the bodies of the two dragons gradually solidified. It was as if they had been reborn. Flesh and blood grew out, and they appeared to be very full and powerful. The two immortal dragons flew out of the broken riverbeds of the Yangtze River and the Yellow River, which have almost dried up. There's a dragon-shaped rift valley extending tens of thousands of meters on each of the two riverbeds. The scene on the television changed the location of the two riverbeds and the host's shocked voice. Two dark green dragons rushed into the sky and faced the black dragon together with the fire phoenix. The battle became even more mighty and fierce, and the impact on Earth became stronger and stronger. The black-robed man looked very much like a human. He held a black iron bell with mysterious patterns on it in one hand, and a long and wide black cloth in the other. At that moment, the temperature of the Earth had reached a ridiculously high level. Waves of fire burned in the air, and the entire world would soon turn into a sea of fire. Xiaoling Yu rushed out of the dormitory. Downstairs, he saw his girlfriend, Gu Xiaomin, rushing towards him. He vaguely remembered that Gu Xiaomin had said that if the end of the world really came, the thing she wanted to do the most before she died was to hug his arm and turn into ashes with him. This girl's mouth is really poisonous. She can even guess that. Xiaoling Yu thought to himself for no reason. However, just as Xiaoling Yu ran towards Gu Xiaomin, a ray of light that he could not see clearly swept across Gu Xiaomin's body. Then, Gu Xiaomin disappeared before his eyes as if she had evaporated. No! Xiaoling Yu rushed towards the place where Gu Xiaomin disappeared almost crazily. However, just as he took 2 steps, his body was also swept by a strange ray of light. Then, he felt the world spinning around him, and his consciousness gradually became muddled. While he was still conscious, Xiaoling Yu knew that he was going to die. He could not help but think of the scenes when he played with his parents when he was a child. He thought of his kind mother's smiling face and his strict father's teachings. He also thought of the beautiful times he had with Gu Xiaomin. Goodbye, Dad, Mom Xiaomin. If there's an afterlife, I'll cherish you even more. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. The Feiyu continent was a continent that had just been discovered in the cultivation world. It was named after the fact that many kinds of feathers could be seen floating in the air in most places on the continent. Since it had just been discovered, there were not many cultivators on the Feiyu continent. However, there were already many cultivation sects that could only be regarded as small sects in the cultivation world. In a mountain forest on the Feiyu continent, a girl wearing a white gauze dress was stepping on a colorful cloud as she slowly descended from the sky. This girl looked to be only 15 or 16 years old. Her eyes were limpid, her eyebrows were like crescent moons, her smile was beautiful, her teeth were like seashells, and her skin was like the morning sun reflecting on the snow. She looked youthful and beautiful, but also charming and bright. As she descended from the sky, her clothes and hair fluttered in the wind. Coupled with her white clothes and the slowly dissipating clouds, she really looked like a lotus flower emerging from the water or a fairy from the 9 heavens descending to the mortal world. However, she had a mischievous smile on her lips and 2 small dimples on her cheeks. She also gave off a very approachable feeling. Even if she was born extremely beautiful, no one would feel inferior to her. She landed in a valley and then walked to the entrance of a cave in the valley. Why is there a person lying here? Or a mortal? The girl looked at the man at the entrance of the cave who was dressed a little strangely, but looked like he was sleeping soundly. The smile on her face disappeared and was replaced by deep doubt and a trace of faintly discernible vigilance. That man's height should be considered average in the cultivation world. His wheat yellow skin looked very healthy. He had 2 straight eyebrows that slanted to his temples. His black hair just covered his ears. He had a straight nose and thin lips that were a little pale. His face was a little thin, but it was very clean. She checked the man repeatedly and finally confirmed that he was a mortal. Moreover, he was currently unconscious. Strange, why would a mortal come to a place like this? How did he do it? The woman was a little suspicious. She thought about it quietly for a while, then blew at the unconscious man. A 5-colored stream of light flew out from her mouth and completely enveloped the man. Then, she walked into the cave, and the man followed behind her, wrapped in the 5-colored stream of light. The cave was very deep and long, and it was a little dark and cold. It was like a tunnel that no one had visited all year round. Originally, in the cultivation world, this kind of cave was a little mysterious and would be very dangerous. However, this cave was different. This beautiful woman had been in the cave for the time it took to brew a cup of tea, but she did not encounter any danger at all. Finally, the cave came to an end. A wall that was completely sealed by mountain rocks blocked the beautiful woman's path. The wall was pitch black and looked very cold and hard. However, the woman ignored the obstruction of the mountain wall. After pausing for a moment, she walked towards the mountain wall. Strangely, her body was not obstructed in the slightest, and the man behind her, who was wrapped in multicolored flowing light, also passed through the mountain wall. Could it be that the mountain wall was just a smokescreen? After passing through the mountain wall, the scene immediately changed. What appeared in front of the beautiful woman was a grand hall that had been abandoned for who knows how many years. In the hall, there were several stone pillars about 3 meters in diameter that towered to the top of the hall. The pillars were engraved with complicated and mysterious runes, and there were also some strange carvings of birds and beasts. The hall was very spacious and also a little gloomy because there were some rotten bones everywhere on the ground. From those bones, one could imagine that this was not a good place. Why would such a beautiful woman in the prime of her youth come to this kind of place? The beautiful woman looked around the hall. She was not afraid of the gloominess of this place. Finally, her gaze locked onto a jade table at the back of the hall. On the jade table, there was a book covered in a thin layer of dust. She slowly walked to the front of the jade table and saw the ancient seal words written on the cover of the book, 9 Revolution Chaos Formula. It really wasn't easy. I really found it. With this 9 Revolution Chaos Formula, Father shouldn't blame me for the mistake of coming out to play without permission, right? The woman was full of joy and expectation as she talked to herself. But what she didn't expect was that when she reached out to touch the book, she was blocked by a halo that appeared out of thin air. That halo completely covered the book in an instant. The beautiful woman was startled and took a few steps back. Moreover, a 5-colored halo appeared around her body. There is actually a seal. This place should have existed for countless years. It is even older than the age of our family's ancestor. This seal should not be too strong. With that thought in mind, the beautiful woman took out an exquisite-looking silver dagger and stabbed it at the gray light barrier. Ding! After a sharp sound, the gray halo that protected the book seemed weak and thin, but it firmly blocked the beautiful woman's dagger. Even the silver moon can't pierce it. How can the seal have such power? The beautiful woman was very surprised and whispered. Chapter 4. The short knife that was blooming with multicolored light once again fiercely stabbed at the gray light barrier. Unfortunately, after a sharp ding sound, a powerful aura came out of the light barrier, pushing the short knife and the beautiful woman far away. As for the man who had been following the beautiful woman like a shadow, he slammed into the cold wall. Fortunately, he was wrapped in the five-colored light, so he was only shaken a little and did not suffer any injuries. It was also this little shock that woke up the man who had been unconscious for who knew how long. I still can't break it. How unlucky. Why is this seal still so strong? After the beautiful woman stabilized her body, she puffed up her cheeks and said in a very bad mood. The beautiful woman was just about to continue when she found that the mortal she had trapped had woken up and was struggling in the multicolored light she had released. She didn't continue. She gently waved her sleeve at the multicolored light, and the multicolored light immediately disappeared. The mortal man inside also fell to the ground weakly. The mortal man supported himself with both hands and stood up with difficulty. However, he still looked dizzy and couldn't help but press his fingers against his temples. What the hell is this place? King of Hell's palace? The mortal man first looked around. Although the scene around him was a little strange, he didn't have a surprised expression. It was as if he had been prepared. After looking around, the mortal man saw the beautiful woman beside him. He was stunned at first, then he actually took a few steps back. His eyes widened, and he seemed a little scared. The beautiful woman furrowed her brows slightly. She had met many people of all levels. However, everyone who saw her had admiration, praising her appearance. However, she had never seen anyone with such an expression. You are a female ghost? The mortal man retreated all the way to the wall before speaking in a trembling voice. Have you ever seen such a beautiful female ghost? Mortals really don't know anything. The beautiful woman's expression immediately sank. She rolled her eyes and said in a bad mood, "Isn't this King of Hell's palace? If you aren't a female ghost, then what are you?" The mortal man asked suspiciously, "What King of Hell's palace? This is the cave of an ancient god. Mortals really don't know anything." The beautiful woman said angrily, "This is not Yama's palace." The mortal man's suspicions grew even deeper. He actually pinched his own face fiercely and then cried out in pain. After that, he started to look at himself again. "What's your name? Why would a mortal like you come here?" The beautiful woman asked after a moment of silence. "I'm Shaoling you. What's your name? You keep saying that I'm a mortal. Could it be that you're a fairy? Or should I call her a demoness?" "That's right. She must be a demonic woman. Only a demonic woman can be so beautiful. Moreover, she's a fox demon," the mortal man said with a knowing look. However, he was indifferent to the beauty of the beautiful woman. "Oof, you're the demoness. My name is Jiang Lanyue, not a fairy, and definitely not a demoness. If you dare to speak nonsense again, be careful that I'll cut off your tongue." It's said that once a mortal's tongue is cut off, they can no longer speak. Do you want to try? The beautiful woman waved the silver moon dagger in her hand and said fiercely. Although it was a threat, Jiang Lanyue's appearance was really too cute. When such words came out of her cherry mouth, they didn't have the slightest bit of killing power. Shaoling Yu first covered his mouth and then decisively shut it. In a situation where he didn't know the other party's background, it was easy for him to speak nonsense and cause trouble. "You still haven't answered my question. How did you come here? It's impossible for a mortal to pass through this desolate mountain forest. Could it be that you were sent here by someone?" Jiang Lanyue asked again. She was very curious about this and also very concerned about it. She came here with a purpose. Naturally, she didn't want any accidents to happen along the way. Therefore, she brought Shaoling Yu in and didn't leave him outside. Jiang Lanyue wasn't someone who would willfully kill the innocent, so she wouldn't mercilessly kill an unconscious mortal who had no enmity with her. "I'm not sure either. Where exactly is this place?" Shaoling Yu first thought carefully for a while, then shook his head and said, "Then you can think about it carefully here." After saying this, Jiang Lanyue blew out a multicolored ball of light that enveloped Xiao Yu. Then, she walked back to the jade table. Where exactly is this place? Am I dead or not? Xiao Yu's mind raced, but he couldn't figure out the main point. However, he quickly remembered that he had gradually lost consciousness after being swept by a strange light. However, he had never felt any pain, so it was very likely that he had encountered an accident. Before he encountered this accident, his girlfriend Gu Xiaomin had also disappeared after being swept by a strange light. Although this matter was a little strange, everything that he had seen on Earth was already shocking enough and mysterious enough. Therefore, it was not impossible for him to accept any strange things happening to him. If he didn't die, then his girlfriend Gu Xiaomin should be fine, right? Were his parents and relatives the same as him? No one could give him an accurate answer to these doubts. He would have to figure it out himself in the future. No matter what, as long as he wasn't dead, there was still hope. Xiao Yu kept thinking about it. In the end, he still felt that the most important thing now was to protect his life. Therefore, he changed the focus of his thoughts. Where was this place? Who was that girl who was a little too beautiful and didn't have the slightest bit of aura? While Xiao Yu was thinking hard, there were explosions outside from time to time. There were also dazzling flashes of light. His body was constantly moving, and from time to time, he would bump into the wall. What exactly is that girl doing? Xiao Yu cursed in his heart. If it weren't for the five-colored light protecting him, he would have lost his life long ago. After about an hour, the five-colored light around Xiao Yu disappeared. The girl named Jiang Lanyue appeared in front of him again, but she looked a little disheveled. Jiang Lanyue's hair was a little messy, and there were sparkling beads of sweat on her smooth forehead. Most importantly, her white dress embroidered with pink peach blossoms was torn in several places. What are you doing? Xiao Yu asked curiously. I'm breaking a seal. It's very strong, and I can't open it, Jiang Lanyue replied gloomily. Do you need my help? Xiao Yu asked kindly. You? Forget it. Jiang Lanyue shook her head, and there was a hint of contempt in her expression. If you don't need my help, then can you let me go first? Don't misunderstand. I just don't want to disturb you while you're casting your spell. Hee, Xiao Yu said with a hollow laugh. The situation here was strange, and he felt that it was better for him to leave as soon as possible. Am I that scary? Why are you in such a hurry to leave? Jiang Lanyue was already a little depressed because she couldn't break the gray light barrier, and when she heard Xiao Yu's words, she became even angrier. You're not scary at all. You're very beautiful, very beautiful. Xiao Yu hurriedly flattered her, but in his heart, he thought that beautiful women were like roses with thorns. Not only were they beautiful, but they could also stab you until your hand was covered in blood. Since you want to leave, I'll send you off. But if you die on the way, don't blame me for not taking you in. Jiang Lanyue said in an unpleasant tone as she led Xiao Yu towards the entrance of the cave. The entrance was blocked by a wall, and if they passed through the wall, they would be able to reach the tunnel they came from. However, what Jiang Lanyue didn't expect was that when she came in, it was so easy, but when she came out, she couldn't do it at all. When she stepped towards a stone wall, she would be directly bounced back. Didn't you want to take me out? Why are you hitting the wall here? Xiao Yu asked in confusion. Jiang Lanyue was so angry that her body trembled, and she pointed the silver moon dagger in her hand at Xiao Yu's nose. Remembering that Xiao Yu was only a mortal, Jiang Lanyue didn't bicker with her. How could a mortal understand the mysteries of these walls? Then, Jiang Lanyue wrapped Xiao Yu in multicolored light and attacked the wall fiercely, but no matter what she did, she couldn't break through it. Then, she changed to another place, but still couldn't find a way out. This was a dangerous place where one could enter but not leave. Even with her strength, she couldn't get out. This made her, who was originally very relaxed, a trace of nervousness finally appear in her heart. In the next few hours, Jiang Lanyue kept looking for a way out, but to no avail. It's over. Even if I open the seal and get the 9-revolution chaos formula, I'll still be trapped here for a long time. This damned ancient god's cave. Jiang Lanyue cursed in an extremely dispirited manner. Jiang Lanyue let Xiao Yu out and said with a worried expression, "It seems that I really shouldn't have brought you in and let you be trapped here with me." "No way," Xiao Yu said in disbelief. The two of them were silent for a long time. Then, Xiao Yu's stomach began to growl. "What's that sound?" Jiang Lanyue asked with a frown. "I'm hungry," Xiao Yu replied awkwardly. "Oh, right. You're a mortal. Mortals need to eat. Here's a fruit for you to eat." With that, Jiang Lanyue tossed Xiao Yu a bright red fruit that looked like a ripe tomato. Xiao Yu was really hungry, so she immediately stuffed the fruit into her mouth. "You can't eat it." Jiang Lanyue seemed to have thought of something. She immediately reached out and snatched the fruit from Xiao Yu's mouth. "You're immortal. If you eat this fruit, you'll immediately explode and die." "I see." Xiao Yu licked her lips in disappointment. Her stomach began to growl again. "Mortals are so troublesome," Jiang Lanyue said as she rummaged through her storage ring. Then, she took out a small wooden table. Taking things out of a storage ring was a very common Dharma spell. Almost everyone in the cultivation world knew how to do it. However, in Xiao Yu's eyes, it was very magical. What was even more magical was that Jiang Lanyue simply waved her sleeves on the table, and several exquisite dishes appeared. "I bought these from many restaurants when I was traveling the cultivation world. I originally wanted to satisfy my cravings when I was bored. Now, I can only let you have them," Jiang Lanyue said gloomily, her heart aching. There really wasn't anything in her storage ring that was suitable for mortals to fill their stomachs. She only had these ordinary dishes that tasted very good. Chapter 5. Perhaps because she was too bored, Jiang Lanyue became interested in Xiao Yu. While Xiao Yu was eating, she kept asking her questions. Of course, she was most concerned about Xiao Yu's background and identity. Xiao Yu knew that she was trapped in this dangerous place, and that she might never be able to leave. She also needed Jiang Lanyue's help to live a little longer, so she didn't bother to hide anything. She told Jiang Lanyue about the situation she encountered on Earth. "Based on what you said, you must have been involved in the battle between the cultivators. As for why you're here, it's probably because the cultivators involved in the battle didn't want to implicate too many innocent lives, so they used their magic to teleport you here," Jiang Lanyue analyzed after listening to Xiao Yu's story. "Teleportation using magic? Is this place far from Earth?" Xiao Yu asked as she ate. "I don't know where the Earth you're talking about is, but even the closest planet to the Feiyu continent is very far away. To be able to perform such a long-distance teleportation, that cultivator's cultivation is at least at the golden immortal stage. You guys are considered lucky. If you encountered those cold and heartless cultivators, they wouldn't care about your lives at all." Jiang Lanyue didn't eat anything. She had no appetite at all when trapped here. She only listened to Xiao Yu's story and helped her analyze it. "Then do you think there are many people like me who have been transported away from Earth? Could it be that I'm the only one?" Xiao Yu asked with great concern. "I'm not too sure about that. It depends on the cultivator's cultivation. However, even if the cultivator's cultivation has reached the limit of the cultivation world space-time, it's still very difficult for him to teleport all the lives on a planet over a long distance in an instant. I think only a few lucky people, including you, were able to escape death. However, even if you were teleported away, you might not be able to escape death. That cultivator seemed to be in a hurry and could only randomly teleport you without a target. You appeared in different places. I reckon that many of you appeared directly in the mouth of some cruel, ferocious beasts or demonic beasts. Let's take you as an example. The place you've appeared in is a dangerous place on the Feiyu continent. It's surrounded by desolate forests and countless ferocious demon beasts and ferocious beasts. If you weren't lucky enough to encounter a kind-hearted person like me, I'm afraid you'd have already been gnawed to the point that not even your bones remain." Jiang Lanyue calmly explained with a slightly complacent expression. This explanation made Xiao Yu, who was already full, decisively give up on eating. Her expression was a bit anxious. Had his parents been teleported out of Earth? If everyone had been teleported out, would they be safe? However, there was no use worrying because he couldn't leave this place. He didn't know how long he could last. After eating, Xiaolingyu didn't give up and asked, "You really don't have a way out? If I did, do you think I would be here chatting with you?" Jiang Lanyue rested her cheeks on her hands and asked in return, "That's hard to say. Maybe you saw how handsome I am and wanted to spend more time with me." Xiaolingyu joked, "You call yourself handsome? Mortals are really ignorant." Jiang Lanyue rolled her eyes at Xiaolingyu and said disdainfully. What Xiaolingyu didn't expect was that he would be trapped for 5 years. Of course, he didn't have a sense of time here. Jiang Lanyue was the one who reminded him of the specific time. The food in Jiang Lanyue's storage ring that was suitable for mortals had long been cleared out. The reason Xiaolingyu could survive for so long without eating was all thanks to Jiang Lanyue. Every time Xiaolingyu's stomach growled, Jiang Lanyue only needed to blow a breath of air at Xiaolingyu. Xiaolingyu's hunger would be swept away, and he would feel refreshed. At first, Xiaolingyu was very surprised by this, but he soon got used to it. In these 5 years, it wasn't that Jiang Lanyue didn't try to force her way out, but she always returned empty-handed. Sometimes, she even got herself covered in dirt. However, she set up a formation in the main hall that Xiaolingyu couldn't understand no matter how hard he tried. She said that this formation could summon the help of experts. Since she had nothing to do, Jiang Lanyue told Xiaolingyu some things about the cultivation world, so that Xiaolingyu had a very comprehensive understanding of the cultivation world. Jiang Lanyue even told Xiaolingyu about some of the secret places where treasures were hidden during her travels in the cultivation world. However, she didn't mention a word about her own origin, nor did she guide Xiaolingyu in cultivation. She only briefly explained the cultivation situation of cultivators. It wasn't that Jiang Lanyue didn't want to teach Xiaolingyu some techniques, but the techniques she knew were all very advanced. Xiaolingyu couldn't cultivate them at all. Moreover, there wasn't a single material in her collection that was suitable for Xiaolingyu. Even the top experts in the cultivation world couldn't enjoy the benefits of those materials. Of course, the more important reason was that Jiang Lanyue shouldn't have appeared in the cultivation world. She didn't want to change the fate of anything in the cultivation world. She only saw herself as a passerby. Jiang Lanyue and Xiaolingyu chatted together for the past 5 years. Naturally, their relationship became better and better. Sometimes they would even inadvertently sleep back to back. There were also times when Jiang Lanyue would cry in Xiaolingyu's arms when she thought of something unhappy, and Xiaolingyu would comfort her like a big brother, even though she was much older than Xiaolingyu. Xiaolingyu liked Jiang Lanyue's naughtiness and quirkiness, while Jiang Lanyue liked Xiaolingyu's straightforwardness and humor. The two of them treated each other honestly and confided in each other. Sometimes they would even play together. Their days were very harmonious. Jiang Lanyue was strong, but she was still a child. She probably didn't know much about the ways of the world. When she was traveling in the cultivation world, she didn't want to get involved, so she was very indifferent to everything. However, being trapped here, her true nature was revealed. She couldn't be completely indifferent to someone she spent all her time with. Perhaps it was because the path of immortals and mortals were different, or perhaps it was because he still missed his girlfriend when he was in college. Therefore, even when facing a beauty like Jiang Lanyue, Xiaolingyu was only occasionally moved. He did not have any bad thoughts, nor did he dare to have any bad thoughts. He was very honest with Jiang Lanyue and didn't hide anything from her. In his opinion, he and this fairy-like girl would be trapped here forever until they died. For a powerhouse like Jiang Lanyue, 5 years passed in the blink of an eye. However, that was when she was cultivating. It was rare for her to spend 5 years like this. Like Xiaolingyu, she inevitably got used to the days when he was around to chat with her. However, these days were destined not to last long. Deep in their hearts, they also wanted to leave this place. After being trapped in this ancient god's cave for more than 5.5 years, Jiang Lanyue seemed to have lost her patience. She seemed to have lost confidence that a strong person would come to her rescue. She said to Xiaolingyu, "I want to try again. I don't believe that I can't get out after entering this place." "Okay, I'll support you in spirit." Xiao Yu nodded and said with a seemingly serious expression, "The walls on all four sides are very sturdy, and there are some very powerful ancient gods art protecting them. I can only start with that book. Maybe if I break the light barrier, this place will automatically open up for us." Jiang Lanyu pointed at the jade table and said, "You've already tried countless times. Haven't you always been unable to open it?" Xiao Yu didn't seem very interested. "It's not that I don't have a way to open it. It's just that I have to pay a huge price. I won't do it easily, but it seems like this is the only way now," Jiang Lanyu said as she walked towards the jade table. The short knife, called Silver Moon, appeared in her hand once again. "What price do we have to pay? If we're going to lose our lives, please don't do it. Maybe someone will come to save us soon." Xiao Yu quickly followed Jiang Lanyu and said with concern, "Lose our lives? Maybe we really will lose our lives. But no matter what, I have to try. Even if I lose my life, at least I can help you get out alive," Jiang Lanyu said very loyally. In fact, that was what she was thinking in her heart. "Please don't do it. We're trapped like this, but we're still living well. I still have a lot of good stories to tell you. Why don't you listen to my stories first before you do it?" Xiao Yu said with a pleading look. He was also a loyal person. He had long regarded Jiang Lanyu as his good friend. Naturally, he wouldn't ignore his good friend and risk her life. "You care about me a lot?" Jiang Lanyu stopped, turned around, and stared at Xiao Yu. Of course I care. If you die because of this adventure, I'm afraid I'll starve to death in the future." Xiao Yu vaguely saw a trace of affection in Jiang Lanyu's eyes. He didn't dare to face it, so he said it in a joking tone. For some reason, Jiang Lanyu felt a little warm in her heart when she heard Xiao Yu say that he cared about her. For so many years, from the moment she was born, she actually received very little care. Her family members were all cultivation maniacs. They spent almost all of their time on cultivation and fighting. Most of their care for her was shown in material things. Others, on the other hand, regarded her as a high and mighty princess. They did not dare to approach her at all, nor did they dare to treat her the way Xiao Yu treated her. It was because her life was very boring that she secretly came out to travel to relieve her boredom. Don't worry. I was just scaring you. I'm not that stupid. If there's any danger of losing my life, I'd rather listen to you repeat those stories every day," Jiang Lanyu said with a smile. At this moment, she suddenly felt that it would be a great blessing to have such an honest, humorous, and considerate person by her side. "Is there really no danger?" Xiao Yu continued to ask. "Don't you trust me?" Jiang Lanyu asked rhetorically. "Then do it." Xiao Yu was relieved to see Jiang Lanyu's relaxed expression. Jiang Lanyu confidently waved her fist at Xiao Yu. Then, she blew out a colorful ball of light to protect Xiao Yu. Then, she looked at the jade table with a solemn expression. The silver moon shines in the sky, exterminating an area. Desolation. Chapter 6. Xiao Yu was enveloped by the thick multicolored light, so he couldn't see the situation outside. However, he was still a little worried. He knew that things weren't that simple, but he also understood Jiang Lanyu's personality. Once she made a decision, she would do it. Thus, he didn't try to persuade her any further. After waiting for less than a minute, Xiao Yu heard another explosion. Then, an extremely powerful force rushed over and pushed him and the multicolored light away. The multicolored ball of light hit the wall and then dissipated. Xiao Yu fell to the ground and tumbled. However, he didn't care whether he was injured or not. He immediately got up and ran over to Jiang Lanyu. Jiang Lanyu appeared to be a little weak. Her delicate body was still trembling, and her face was as white as paper. When Xiao Yu arrived in front of her, she bent over and spat out a mouthful of blood. Xiao Yu supported Jiang Lanyu's tottering body and asked with concern, Are you all right?" "I'm fine." Jiang Lanyu stood up straight and reached out to touch the ancient book on the jade table. Xiao Yu didn't realize that the silver moon dagger in Jiang Lanyu's hand had already been broken in two and was lying quietly on the ground. Without the barrier of light, Jiang Lanyue's jade-like fingers easily touched the cover of the book. However, something unexpected happened at this moment. A gray stream of air rushed out of the book and rushed towards Jiang Lanyue. Jiang Lanyue thought that there was danger, so she reflexively released a circle of 5-colored light to wrap around her body. In a moment of desperation, she actually forgot to protect Xiaoling Yu as well. The gray stream of air didn't seem to be able to stay outside for long. It seemed to be in a hurry to find a place to stay. After hitting a wall with Jiang Lanyue, it turned around and rushed into Xiaoling Yu's body at lightning speed. Xiaoling Yu also cried out in alarm. Unfortunately, he didn't have any cultivation and couldn't dodge that fast stream of air. Thus, he was inevitably hit and was stunned. Jiang Lanyue secretly blamed himself. Then, he asked Xiaoling Yu with concern, "Are you all right?" I'm fine. It's so strange. It felt like a cold wind blew past me. Apart from that, I didn't feel anything special. Xiaoling Yu felt a little suspicious. Both he and Jiang Lanyue naturally thought that the gray stream of air was a trap for those who dared to touch the book. However, that didn't seem to be the case. The strange thing was that the ancient book turned into a pile of ash after emitting a grayish stream of air. It was blown away by the wind and disappeared without a trace. Some things are very strange. As a mortal, you can't detect them. Come, let me check for you. As he spoke, Jiang Lanyue pulled Xiaoling Yu to his side and used his divine sense to carefully examine Xiaoling Yu. However, what surprised him was that even though his divine sense was not weak, he couldn't find where the gray stream of air was hidden. He also couldn't find the slightest difference between Xiaoling Yu and before. That's strange. How could this be? Jiang Lanyue frowned and said with a puzzled expression, "Can we go out now?" Xiaoling Yu asked again. "Yes, that mountain wall should allow us to directly pass through." Jiang Lanyue nodded and said. Just as Jiang Lanyue was about to take Xiaoling Yu out of the ancient god's cave, the space above the two suddenly fluctuated violently. Then, a scene that surprised Xiaoling Yu appeared. The violently fluctuating space suddenly ruptured, and a black hole that was as tall as a person slowly appeared above the two of them. "This is..." Xiaoling Yu asked with a dumbfounded expression. "It's nothing. Someone is looking for me." Jiang Lanyue pulled Xiaoling Yu behind him and said calmly. Sure enough, a moment later, a man wearing a brocade robe walked out of the black hole. The man had a dignified appearance. His eyebrows were broad, and his long hair fluttered in the wind. He appeared very elegant and elegant. Behind him were two attendants wearing armor and helmets, each holding a simple and unadorned broadsword. "Cousin Lanyu, I finally found you. If I had come a few days later, I'm afraid that even I would have been punished when I returned." The man walked out of the black hole and clasped his hands into fists. He spoke very politely to Jiang Lanyue. I'm sure that you took on the mission of coming out to find me. Didn't you just come out for a walk? What's the fuss about?" Jiang Lanyue wrinkled her nose and said, "Cousin Lanyu still understands me the best. I also care about Cousin Lanyu. Let's go back early. Cousin Lanyu has been out for a few days now. It's time to go home and take a look. We must not provoke Uncle's anger." The man calmly responded, "Don't use my father to pressure me. If I was afraid of him, I wouldn't have snuck out. However, I'm really tired playing outside. Since you found me, I'll go back with you." In reality, Jiang Lanyue was very guilty. Although she said that she was not afraid of her father, she was still a little fearful of him in her heart. Since she had been found, it was better to go back. Otherwise, if her father personally came, she would inevitably be punished. "Are you leaving?" Xiaoling Yu took a step forward and asked reluctantly. "Yes, it's time to go home." Jiang Lanyue nodded. Her expression was somewhat reluctant. The days she spent with Xiaoling Yu were the happiest days since she was born. "Eh, a mortal?" The man who called Jiang Lanyue his cousin exclaimed in surprise. He took 2 steps forward and walked in front of Xiaoling Yu. He also carefully sized up Xiaoling Yu from head to toe. "My name is Xiaoling Yu. Greetings to this cousin." Since the other party was Jiang Lanyue's relative, Xiaoling Yu naturally had to be polite and take the initiative to greet him. He didn't know how to address him, but when he saw the other party's young appearance, he finally forced himself to address him as cousin. Oomph. A mortal, as insignificant as an ant, dares to call me cousin. However, the other party didn't appreciate it all. With a wave of his sleeve, a fierce force swept towards Xiao Yu. Impudent! Jiang Lanyue didn't expect her cousin to be so impulsive. As she reprimanded him, she also shot out a five-colored radiance to meet the fierce qi. The two forces exploded in front of Xiao Yu. Although he wasn't directly hit, his body was still pushed far away and slammed heavily into a cold and hard stone wall. Falling from the stone wall, Xiao Yu felt pain all over his body. He couldn't help but spit out a few mouthfuls of blood. You didn't die? The man was surprised to see that Xiao Yu was still breathing. Although the force just now wasn't very strong, it was definitely not something a mortal could withstand. Jiang Lanyue hurriedly ran to Xiao Yu's side and helped Xiao Yu up. She also helped Xiao Yu wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. Seeing Jiang Lanyue so attentive, the man's eyes narrowed. He secretly tried to figure out Xiao Yu's identity. However, no matter how he looked at it, he felt that Xiao Yu was just a mortal. Why was his cousin so concerned about him? Have the experts of our family Jiang fallen to the point where they have to show off in front of mortals? Jiang Lanyue pointed at the man and scolded him in a flustered and exasperated manner. It's my fault. It was just a moment of carelessness. Please forgive me. The man hurriedly cupped his hands and admitted his mistake. Then he continued, however, cousin, he's just a mortal. There's a world of difference between us and him. It's best if we don't affect the lives of mortals like him. But in his heart, the man was very dissatisfied that Jiang Lanyue stood up for a mortal. Existences like them wouldn't care about the life or death of a mortal. Normally, they wouldn't even look at cultivators who were slightly weaker. Cousin, it's getting late. We should go back. The man saw that Jiang Lanyue was still very angry, so he changed the topic and urged her. I'll treat his injuries first. As Jiang Lanyue spoke, she blew a multicolored radiance at Xiao Yu. Then she said gently, I really should go. If fate wills it, we'll meet again in the God Realm. Okay, see you in the God Realm. Bye-bye. After the multicolored radiance entered his body, Xiao Yu immediately felt his body's condition improve. When he heard Jiang Lanyue say goodbye again, he didn't ask her to stay. Jiang Lanyue knew what bye-bye meant. She also said goodbye to Xiao Yu and then flew into the black hole. Bye-bye. The man was a little suspicious, but he didn't think too much about it. It was already beyond his expectations that Jiang Lanyue would agree to go home with him so easily. A mere mortal like you dares to have designs on my cousin? How laughable. After Jiang Lanyue and the others entered the black hole, the man's disdainful words sounded in Xiao Yu's ears. Xiao Yu originally wanted to reply, but there was only a very narrow crack left in the black hole. He saw Jiang Lanyue's beautiful eyes through the crack, and he couldn't help but feel disappointed. Naturally, he couldn't say anything. However, just as the crack was about to disappear, a silver radiance flew out from it. The silver radiance was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it hit Xiao Yu. However, a multicolored radiance immediately bloomed from Xiao Yu's body, blocking the silver radiance. After an explosion, Xiao Yu's body once again came into close contact with a cold stone wall. In the spatial tunnel, Jiang Lanyue angrily questioned her cousin. Can't you see that he's my friend? You actually attacked him before the spatial door disappeared. You're a monarch god expert, but you actually sneak attacked a mortal. Do you have any shame? Since he's a mortal, then Miss shouldn't have left a ball of essence in his body. If Uncle finds out about this, he won't be happy, the man replied fearlessly. You'll stay as far away from me as you can dream. Jiang Lanyue was so angry that her body trembled. Unfortunately, she couldn't go back. She could only copy Xiao Yu's words and reply. Xiao Yu didn't know how dangerous it was. If Jiang Lanyue hadn't left a ball of essence in his body, he would have been killed by the man's sneak attack. He endured the pain in his body and struggled to stand up. However, he saw a thin silver needle on the ground. Only then did he remember that it was this needle that suddenly flew out to attack him. Xiaoling Yu was not a stupid person. He could naturally guess that it was the man who attacked him. Thinking back to how his warm face was met with a cold but from the other party, he naturally did not have a good impression of the man. However, he could also think of the gap between him and the other party, so he could only angrily curse a few times. This silver needle should be a high-grade item. It's worth keeping. If, and I'm saying if, I become a powerful person one day, I'll definitely return the favor. Xiaoling Yu picked up the silver needle and went to the jade table to pick up Jiang Lanyue's broken silver moon dagger. He didn't dare to stay here for a moment longer. He directly walked towards the stone wall that was still sealed. Chapter 7. Walking out of the tunnel, Xiaoling Yu arrived at the valley and immediately felt his whole body wrapped in warmth. He had stayed in a dark place like the ancient god's cavern for a few years and had almost forgotten the existence of sunlight. At this moment, the sunlight shone on his body, making him feel as if he had seen the light of day again and had been reborn. After squinting his eyes for a while, he looked up at the sky. He saw countless feathers of different colors floating slowly under the sunlight, covering the sky and the sun. It was a spectacular sight. Some of the feathers were hundreds of feet long, while others were as soft as catkins. Xiaoling Yu then remembered what Jiang Lanyue had said. This was the Feiyu continent of the cultivation world. At the same time, he also remembered that this was the depths of an ancient forest. In this ancient forest, there were countless ferocious beasts and demonic beasts. Many powerful cultivators on the Feiyu continent did not dare to set foot in this place. Now that I'm out of the ancient god's cavern, how can I get out of this ancient forest safely? Xiaoling Yu, who still had no cultivation, could not help but feel a little distressed. No matter what, he had to recover from his injuries first. Fortunately, he had the protection of the colorful light. Otherwise, he would have become a pair of white bones in the ancient god's cavern and been sealed for thousands of years. Thinking of this, Xiaoling Yu naturally missed the days when he was with Jiang Lanyue. At the same time, he felt a little more grateful for Jiang Lanyue's protection. At the same time, he also hated his so-called cousin. I have no enmity with you. You failed to attack me first and even sneak attack me at the end. It's all because I'm immortal. When I become a master one day, I'll definitely trample you under my feet. Ant? I definitely don't want to be an ant. Xiaoling Yu swore in her heart that this was a reaction that a man should have after being provoked. She just didn't know if he would be able to remember this and use it as motivation. Under normal circumstances, many men would just vent their anger and forget it completely after a short while. After all, the difference between the two was too big. After staying in the valley for another day, Xiaoling Yu's injuries were almost healed. It wasn't because of his strong recovery ability, but because Jiang Lanyue had blown too much of the multicolored light on his body over the years. The light still remained in his body, allowing him to slowly recover from his injuries. It also prevented him from starving and losing his life. Although a few years had passed, and Xiaoling Yu should have grown a few years older, other than growing taller, his appearance did not change at all. He still looked like an 18 or 19-year-old boy, but in fact he was almost 25 years old. Xiaoling Yu finally made up his mind to leave the valley. However, when he reached the valley's exit, he heard the roars of beasts. His heart trembled, and he looked around with a guilty conscience. This valley might not always be safe. Being in the desolate ancient forest, one could lose one's life at any time. Moreover, in a few days, Xiaoling Yu would feel the hunger and thirst again. He simply could not afford to delay. Xiaoling Yu still resolutely left the valley. He randomly chose a direction and walked straight ahead. Only half a day after leaving the valley, Xiaoling Yu encountered a ferocious beast. This ferocious beast was shaped like a fierce tiger, but it had 3 eyes. Its body was as large as a small mountain. Its appearance scared Xiaoling Yu to the spot. However, just as Xiaoling Yu was in despair and felt that he couldn't escape this time, the ferocious beast that was pouncing towards him suddenly stopped about 10 meters away from him. What Xiaoling Yu didn't expect was that the ferocious beast lowered its head and sniffed around. As if it smelled something that terrified it, it actually turned around and flew away, disappearing before Xiaoling Yu's eyes. What's going on? Xiaoling Yu pondered in confusion. He naturally couldn't understand, so after calming down a little, he continued to walk forward. Just like this, 9 days passed very quickly. During this period, Xiaoling Yu encountered a few more ferocious beasts, but each time, it was a false alarm. When the ferocious beasts saw him, it was as if they had seen a god. They didn't dare to get too close and ran away every time. However, after 9 days, Xiaoling Yu felt hungry and thirsty. He couldn't help but glance at the wild fruits in his arms. Xiaoling Yu was a little hesitant. These wild fruits looked sweet, but this was the cultivation world after all. Wild fruits here couldn't be eaten casually. As a mortal, if he swallowed a fruit that contained a terrifying amount of energy, his body would probably explode. Jiang Lanyue had already told Xiaoling Yu about these things before. However, if he didn't eat them, he would starve to death sooner or later. What should he do? It was better not to eat them first. Perhaps he would be out of this ancient forest in a while. Holding on to this hope, Xiaoling Yu continued to endure. However, his body was getting weaker and weaker, and this ancient forest seemed to have no end. Finally, Xiaoling Yu stopped beside a pool under a waterfall. He fell to the ground and panted heavily. His eyes were a little dazed. He knew that he couldn't hold on any longer. Lying flat beside the pool and listening to the rumbling sounds, the last trace of hesitation in his heart disappeared. He took out all the wild fruits he had picked in the forest and placed them in front of him. He began to choose which one to eat first. What Xiaoling Yu didn't notice was that in the pool behind him, a huge snake head as large as a house emerged from the water. It originally had a sound, but it was drowned out by the roar of the waterfall. When Xiaoling Yu finally made up his mind to eat the most ordinary-looking red fruit, a fishy wind suddenly swept over, and the red fruit in his hand disappeared. Looking at his empty hand, Xiaoling Yu was very surprised and puzzled. Where did the fruit go? These fruits are indeed not simple. They can even run away on their own. However, it's fine if it runs away. It's not a good thing for me to eat that kind of spiritual fruit. After comforting himself, Xiaoling Yu picked up another fruit. However, this fruit also disappeared after a gust of fishy wind. This naturally made him feel that it was too strange. Before Xiaoling Yu could pick up the other fruits beside him, those fruits disappeared. However, Xiaoling Yu had already sensed that something was wrong behind him. He slowly turned around, and his brain immediately stopped working. His eyes widened, and his body couldn't help but tremble. In the pool behind him, a purplish-green snake head was floating on the surface of the water. The two green eyes on the snake head were staring at him, causing him to feel a chill run down his spine. The snake's mouth had 2 rows of teeth that were as sharp as swords, and its long tongue was flicking in and out. At this moment, Xiaoling Yu could guess that the fruits he picked were all in the snake's mouth. The snake's mouth was chewing, as if it was tasting delicious food. After Xiaoling Yu came back to his senses, he immediately used his but to push against the ground and slowly moved back, wanting to get away from the snake. How could the snake let Xiaoling Yu leave like this? Although it had just eaten Xiaoling Yu's fruit, it still had a natural desire to kill such an uninvited guest. The snake spat out its thick and wide tongue, rolled Xiaoling Yu's body up, and sent him into its mouth. In a panic, Xiaoling Yu took out the silver needle that he used to sneak an attack on him and stabbed the snake's tongue. The serpent's tongue should be tough enough to break gold and stone, but under the attack of the silver needle, it was as weak as tofu. The silver needle pierced into the serpent's tongue without any resistance. The giant snake let out a painful roar, shaking Xiaoling Yu so much that he felt dizzy. In pain, the snake released its tongue, and Xiaoling Yu regained his freedom and fell to the ground. Xiaoling Yu knew that he was in a very dangerous situation. He was prepared to use the last of his strength to escape, but he saw that the snake's body was glowing with silver light, and it kept roaring in pain. It kept twisting its body in the pool, and its expression was a little twisted. Xiaoling Yu could see that the snake was suffering unparalleled pain and was probably not far from death. The snake did not attack him again. After struggling for a while, it floated weakly on the surface of the water and looked at him pitifully. Seeing the snake's expression, Xiaoling Yu's heart softened, but he did not let down his guard. Instead, he quietly sized up the snake and then asked tentatively, "Can you understand me?" The serpent was stunned for a moment before it nodded, looking very obedient. "Then will you still attack me?" Xiaoling Yu asked again. The snake shook its head, and when it looked at Xiaoling Yu, there was a trace of fear. "Are you in pain, and you want me to help you?" Xiaoling Yu asked again. The snake nodded again, but Xiaoling Yu was confused. He was only a mortal, so why was the snake afraid of him? Why was it asking him for help? Just as Xiaoling Yu was doubting himself, the snake spat out its tongue, but it did not attack him. Instead, it was delivered to him. After a few glances, Xiaoling Yu discovered the silver needle on the snake's tongue. The silver needle had already pierced deeply into the snake's tongue, but seemed to have expanded a lot. It no longer looked like a silver needle, but more like a silver pestle. "Do you want me to help you pull it out?" Xiaoling Yu asked the pitiful snake with a pained expression. The snake nodded. Xiaoling Yu was a little hesitant. He did not know if he could pull it out, but if he really could, would the snake continue to attack him? If he could not pull it out, would the snake attack him when it saw that he could not save it? After thinking about it, he still felt that he could not act rashly. He said to the snake, "You dared to sneak an attack on me just now. This is your punishment. I will help you pull it out after I feel that you are sincerely repentant." The snake immediately lowered its head, and its expression was full of sorrow. Xiaoling Yu was secretly happy. At the same time, he felt that his decision was very wise. "You can repent here. I will leave first." After all, Xiaoling Yu was a mortal. He did not dare to stay in front of such a ferocious beast, and hurriedly left. Chapter 8. When the snake heard that Xiaoling Yu was going to leave, it was very nervous. However, when it saw Xiaoling Yu lying on the ground, it was both happy and confused. It had cultivated alone in the depths of this desolate forest for many years, so it had a bit of intelligence. It could feel that Xiaoling Yu's body didn't have any strong energy fluctuations, but such a mortal was actually able to injure it just now. Moreover, this mortal's magic weapon was still able to stay in its body and torment it. If things went wrong, it might even kill it. The snake sniffed Xiaoling Yu's body again. Its eyes squeezed together, looking very worried. "No, I can't let him die. Otherwise, I'll be done for too." The anxious snake opened its mouth. However, it did not swallow Xiaoling Yu. Instead, it spat out the essence of the fruits it had just eaten into Xiaoling Yu's body through its nostrils to help Xiaoling Yu recover. After about 10 minutes, Xiaoling Yu slowly opened his eyes. His complexion was much better, but his mind was still a little muddled. When he saw the snake again, Xiaoling Yu's heart skipped a beat. However, when he saw that the snake was looking at him with concern and a pitiful expression, he was not too afraid. Instead, he mustered up his courage and asked, "Did you save me just now?" The snake whimpered and nodded its huge head. "Thank you." Xiaoling Yu rubbed his temples and said. The snake shook its head as if to say that there was no need to thank him. Then it stuck out its tongue again. "If I help you pull it out, you promise that you won't attack me again, right?" Xiaoling Yu asked tentatively. After being saved by the snake, he felt that this snake might not be so cruel and without a trace of kindness. Thus, his attitude softened a little. The snake shook its head repeatedly, indicating that it would definitely not attack again. "But I can't guarantee that I can pull it out. This silver needle is not mine. Furthermore, someone else used it to kill me," Xiaoling Yu said truthfully. Other than feeling that the snake was not extremely vicious, he also felt that if he angered the snake, it might try to kill him. The snake didn't make a sound. It still had a pleading look on its face. Xiaoling Yu shook her head helplessly and reached out to pull out the silver needle. What Xiaoling Yu didn't expect was that he really pulled out the silver needle, and it didn't take too much effort. When the silver needle was in his hand, it was like an obedient child, and very obediently returned to its original size. "All right, you wanted to kill me just now, but then you saved me. I also helped you pull out this silver needle. We're even now. We don't owe each other anything. Bye-bye." Xiao Yu clapped his hands and looked like he had finished his work. He turned around and was about to leave. Deep down, he was still a little afraid of this big snake. After all, he was too weak. What Xiao Yu did not expect was that just as he ran a few steps, the snake's head, which was no longer restrained by the silver needles, once again swept towards him with a fishy wind and directly tied him up. At this moment, Xiao Yu's hands and feet could not move at all, let alone pierce the silver needle into the snake's body again. He cursed the snake in his heart for not keeping its promise. Then, he laughed at himself for believing in a beast. While he regretted it, he also felt that the creatures of the cultivation world were really difficult to deal with. The snake wrapped Xiao Yu around it and fell into the pool. It wanted to torture this human who had hurt it just now. Otherwise, it would be really difficult to vent its anger. However, just as it was about to sink into the water, a gray light suddenly exploded from Xiao Yu's body. Although the light did not look real, it was a real attack. The snake released its tongue once again and let out a painful howl. Xiao Yu fell to the side of the pool again, panting. However, he also felt that there was something strange in his body. After experiencing 2 setbacks in a row, the snake did not dare to provoke Xiao Yu again and directly sank to the bottom of the pool. "Kid, I can save you this time, but you will have to rely on yourself in the future." A slightly old voice rang in Xiao Yu's ears. "Who? Where are you?" Xiao Yu immediately became nervous. He had just realized that the creatures of the cultivation world were too difficult to deal with. The snake had not been dealt with yet. Why was there another one? Who am I? I don't think anyone can remember me anymore. However, the cave that you stayed in for a period of time was left by me in the cultivation world. Originally, I did not want to appear so early. I wanted to wait for you to cultivate for a period of time before I came out to tell you in detail. However, you have already learned a lot about the cultivation world from that little girl. This time, your life was in danger. Although I can only appear once, I had no choice but to come out and save you. The voice sounded again, but there was a hint of bitterness in its tone. You were the one who saved me just now? Then where are you now? Xiao Yu looked around, but could not find anyone, so he asked very suspiciously. I am in your knowledge, see. Right now, you can't see inside yourself, nor can you feel the existence of your knowledge, see, so you don't have to look for me. This remnant of my soul can only appear once, and the time is very short. So, let's make it short. You have to remember every word that I say. Xiao Yu nodded and did not say anything after hearing this. During the days that he spent with Jiang Lanyue, he knew what the knowledge sea was. The gray light on your body now is actually a strand of chaotic essence. It can help you absorb the chaotic energy between heaven and earth, giving you the foundation to cultivate the 9-revolution chaos formula. However, for countless years, no one has been able to cultivate the 9-revolution chaos formula to the highest level. And if you can't cultivate it to the highest level, you will eventually be annihilated. This peerless technique can make a cultivator extremely powerful, but at the same time, it also requires the cultivator not to slack off. Not only must you have an extremely good foundation, but you also need to have excellent talent and perception. More importantly, you cannot be limited to one realm for too long. Otherwise, you will not be able to cultivate it successfully. Your foundation is average, and you're already in your 20s. You have already passed the best age to start cultivating. As for your perception and talent, you will need time to prove it. Originally, I wanted to let that girl cultivate it, but unfortunately, she blocked the chaotic essence at that time, proving that this opportunity did not belong to her. Cultivating this peerless technique will be much more difficult for you than for ordinary cultivators, and it will be even more difficult than for those geniuses. However, this technique is very difficult for those geniuses to cultivate successfully. Back then, I was also considered a genius, but I still died while trying to break through to the 9th revolution. Since the requirements for cultivation are so harsh, and I am very ordinary, it's better that I don't cultivate it. Xiao Yu interrupted, looking a little guilty. Haha, of course you don't have to cultivate it. However, don't you want to find your old friends and family? Don't you want to go to the realm of the gods to see that girl with the surname Jiang? Don't you want to let that person who tried to kill you suffer a little? Of course I want to, but I'm a person who knows my own limits. Things that are beyond my power are just wishful thinking, like the moon in the water and the flower in the mirror. It is something that can only be seen but not reached. Xiaoling Yu said with a calm expression. It's a good thing to know one's own limits. Reckless people tend to die early in the world of cultivation. However, you have to think clearly. With your talent, I'm afraid that no cultivator or cultivation sect will be willing to take you in. You can almost forget about getting a good opportunity to cultivate before you die. Even if you get a chance to cultivate, you won't be able to achieve anything great. You will only be mediocre for the rest of your life, bullied and humiliated by others. You won't be able to get what you want, and you won't be able to protect what you want to protect. Do you want that? From what you're saying, I should give it a try. Xiaoling Yu paused, frowned, and asked with a serious expression. When he was in the cave, Jiang Luanyue didn't mention these things to him. Of course you should give it a try. If you don't have this wisp of chaotic essence, you will only be struggling on the verge of death. However, this wisp of chaotic essence is in your body. It is your greatest capital and confidence to fight. Actually, I really don't want this wisp of chaotic essence to dissipate between heaven and earth. I also don't want our lineage to come to an end. Our lineage? Xiaoling Yu was a little confused. Yes. Our lineage has existed since ancient times. After more than 10 generations, there's only one person in each generation, and every one of them has cultivated the 9 revolutions chaos formula. More than 10 generations? No one has cultivated this technique to the highest level. Xiaoling Yu asked in surprise. No. Then what do you think my chances of success are? Xiaoling Yu asked again. Everyone has their own opportunities and opportunities. Cultivation is a very mysterious thing. You can't judge it just by your foundation, comprehension, and talent. Although I think it is almost impossible for you to cultivate the 9 revolutions chaos formula to the highest level, why don't you give it a try? Okay, I'll give it a try. Xiaoling Yu didn't hesitate for too long. He agreed because he felt that what Jiang Luanyue said was very reasonable. Before I teach you the technique, I have to remind you that if you think you can't cultivate it, you must leave the successor behind. You can't let our lineage be lost, but at the same time, you can't easily reveal the technique. I can guarantee this, Xiaoling Yu said with certainty. You can only try your best. There is no guarantee. What if one day you are suddenly killed before you can leave the technique behind? How can you guarantee that? Of course, I won't let you die so easily. At least, I won't let you die so easily in the cultivation world. That big snake is already at the spirit-severing stage and has a trace of the ancient Azure Dragon's bloodline. In a while, I will help you subdue it. It'll be a great help for your early cultivation. That's great, hee. Xiaoling Yu said with a dry laugh. Now, you should first acknowledge heaven as your master. Then I will teach you the 9 revolutions chaos formula. When you cultivate in the future, it is best not to have irrelevant people by your side. Our lineage has always been hated and has made many enemies. However, our real enemies are now in the God realm, so you don't have to worry now. Our lineage also has an ancestral rule, and that is, if anyone cultivates the 9 revolutions chaos formula to the highest level, they must take back the chaos spectrum. Chapter 9. Early in the morning, in the cultivation world's Feiyu continent, by a small stream in the depths of the barren ancient forest, Xiaoling Yu was wrapped in a layer of gray light. His breathing was steady, and his expression was serene. An inexplicable energy from heaven and earth slowly seeped into his body, and his skin was covered in smelly, grayish-black stains. These stains were expelled from his body when he cultivated the 9 revolutions chaos formula. They were also the impurities in his body. Expelling these impurities would allow him to cultivate better and allow his body to better accommodate the chaotic energy. What was surprising was that there was one lying beside him, its tail forming a circle, and Xiaoling Yu was in the middle of that circle. Whoosh! Xiao Lingyu slowly stopped cultivating, took a deep breath, opened his eyes, and stood up. From his eyes, an almost imperceptible light shone. Those who were familiar with him would notice that Xiao Lingyu's skin was fairer than before, and his eyes were clearer and brighter. It's been a month. Although I haven't walked out of the barren ancient forest, I've completed the chaotic foundation establishment. Xiao Lingyu muttered, then jumped into the stream beside him, letting the water wash away the stains on his body. The stream water in the morning was bone-chilling. If Xiao Lingyu hadn't completed the foundation establishment cultivation, he wouldn't have been able to stay in the water for too long. But now he only needed to circulate his energy slightly to ignore the coldness of the water. He didn't come out of the water, but quietly thought for a while. Obtaining the 9 revolutions chaos formula gave him the confidence and capital to fight, giving him an advantage in cultivation that ordinary people couldn't reach. But his aptitude was much worse than that of ordinary cultivators. Moreover, as the successor of this branch, he didn't only enjoy the benefits of this peerless technique. He also had to bear certain obligations, such as the mission of retrieving the chaos spectrum that no one in his branch had ever completed. There's no such thing as a free lunch in the world, and there's no such thing as a free lunch. Rights and obligations are equal. These principles on Earth are also applicable in the cultivation world. Xiao Lingyu smiled bitterly. She leaped out of the water and rose to a height of more than 10 meters before stopping. He gazed into the distance. This desolate ancient forest was still boundless. Other than the tall mountains blocking the way, the rest was boundless. The lush forest was like a green ocean with surging waves. It seemed that it would take quite some time for him to get out of here. Hiss. After Xiao Lingyu landed, the spirit-severing stage snake with the bloodline of the azure dragon rubbed its head against him twice, appearing very obedient. There's no need. Master said that there are some things that I have to rely on myself to solve. If I can't even walk out of this desolate ancient forest, how can I roam the world? This will be my first experience on the path of cultivation. Xiao Lingyu said with a confident smile, as she patted the snake's smooth but extremely hard head. The serpent whimpered softly, but did not insist on helping. Let's go. Let's continue forward. Have a sharp nose, and catch me a wild rabbit, Xiao Lingyu said as he walked forward. The serpent followed closely behind Xiao Lingyu. Like a thief, it constantly glanced around with its eyes. The serpent had already recognized Xiao Lingyu as its master. Of course, this was not voluntary. Xiao Lingyu's master, whom he had never seen before, used the chaotic essence to suppress the serpent and force it to recognize him as its master. After recognizing him as its master, the serpent and Xiao Lingyu were connected mentally. It did not dare to disobey Xiao Lingyu in the slightest, much less attack Xiao Lingyu. It also did not dare to let Xiao Lingyu die. Otherwise, it would not have a good ending. Originally, with Xiao Lingyu's strength, it was impossible for her to control the spirit-severing stage serpent. However, the method of recognizing him as its master was to use the chaotic essence to penetrate the serpent's soul. The serpent could not force out at all. Moreover, in the entire cultivation world, no one had such ability. The day passed very quickly. Xiao Lingyu set up a bonfire and skinned the fat wild rabbit that the serpent had caught. She dug out its innards and roasted it over the fire. After more than a month of practice, although there was no seasoning, the wild game that Xiao Lingyu roasted was barely enough to satisfy her hunger. Moreover, it was full of fragrance. The serpent was also very greedy, but a wild rabbit was not enough to fill the gaps between its teeth. Moreover, it preferred to eat raw and demonic beasts with good cultivation. Therefore, this wild rabbit was only enjoyed by Xiao Lingyu. Xiao Lingyu had just eaten a few mouthfuls when the serpent's head, which was originally lying on the ground, suddenly rose. Xiao Lingyu knew that a demonic beast or ferocious beast must have smelled the aroma and come over. After pausing for a moment, the serpent seemed to have locked onto its target and directly pounced over. Xiao Lingyu did not stop it. The serpent had always been responsible for his safety. Without this serpent, he would not be able to walk out of this desolate ancient forest safely. He did not care too much. Although this serpent cultivation was not the strongest in the desolate ancient forest, it was not something that ordinary demonic beasts could deal with. In more than a month, he had seen too many ferocious demonic beasts being swallowed or torn apart by the serpent. At first, he was a little nervous, but after a long time, he got used to it. But this time, he was a little surprised. After he had eaten his fill, he did not see the serpent return. Instead, he heard the serpent continuously roaring. At the same time, he saw a flash of brilliance and heard continuous explosions. Xiao Yu was a little worried about the serpent's safety. Although his cultivation was not very good, he still braced himself and quietly crept over. Not long after, Xiao Yu could no longer move forward. This was because there was a constant gust of wind in front of him. With his current cultivation, he could not withstand it all. He could only wait in the distance. However, he could see that in midair, there were several figures flying around. Moreover, rays of dazzling light were constantly shooting into the sky. At this time, his serpent was also in midair. It was constantly twisting its body and sweeping in all directions. At the same time, it was constantly opening its mouth to spit out green-purple water arrows that collided with the dazzling streams of light. The battle should be very intense. Xiao Yu's eyesight had improved by leaps and bounds. He could see that the serpent had the absolute upper hand, so he was not too worried. However, no matter how Xiao Yu looked at the figures that were fighting with the snake, he felt that they were all human cultivators. Moreover, they already had good cultivation and skills. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the battle finally came to an end. Among the opponents, one of them was shot through by the serpent's water arrow and fell from the sky. The others all fled. Because the serpent had to take care of Xiao Yu, it did not chase after them. Instead, it descended from the sky and came to Xiao Yu's side. It kept growling softly, as if it was asking Xiao Yu for a reward. Xiao Yu did not pay attention to the serpent. Instead, he walked over to the cultivator who had fallen from the sky. That cultivator was a young man who looked to be in his 20s. At this time, he was lying weakly on the ground, without any signs of life. The serpent sniffed and seemed to realize that the young man was not completely dead. It opened its mouth and bit him again. "Stop!" Xiao Yu hurriedly stopped it. The serpent's sharp teeth stopped less than a centimeter away from the young man's body. It turned to look at Xiao Yu in confusion. "We have no enmity with him. It's better if we don't take his life so easily," Xiao Yu said to the serpent. The serpent growled softly and obediently crawled behind Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu checked the young man and found that he was indeed not completely dead. He was still alive, but his breathing was very weak. There was also a bloody hole in his chest that was gurgling with dark red blood. The young man was obviously unconscious due to his severe injuries. If he was a normal person, he would have died on the spot. Even if he was a cultivator, it would still be very dangerous. After hesitating for a while, Xiao Yu stretched out his hands and used his chaotic essence to help heal the young man. His master had said that chaotic essence had a very strong healing effect. As the young man did not reject it, the chaotic essence easily entered the young man's body. Under Xiao Yu's control, the chaotic essence flowed through the young man's body and finally slowly acted on the young man's wound. After more than 4 hours, Xiao Yu slowly stopped. He did not use much of his chaotic essence. After all, this kind of high-level energy seemed to be only a strand, but in reality, it contained a lot of energy. At least, it was unimaginable for cultivators in the cultivation world. After stabilizing the young man's injuries, Xiao Yu wanted to leave immediately. However, the young man was still unconscious. If he left, the young man would still be in great danger. However, he did not want the young man to see him when he woke up, so he was very hesitant. After thinking about it, Xiao Yu decided to find a secluded place to hide and watch over the young man. He felt that the young man's friends would definitely find this place. In fact, it was exactly so. When the sky was slightly brighter, a few people finally came quietly. As soon as they arrived, the large snake followed Xiao Yu's instructions and turned into a small snake that was only a foot long and hid in the treetops. They first checked the young man. Then, they all looked very strange and started to talk. Xiaoling Yu hid very far away and could not hear what they were saying. However, he could see their expressions. At this moment, he saw that they were all frowning and there were already people looking around. During this time, someone had already taken out a golden pill and fed it to the injured young man. After a while, the unconscious young man woke up. Then, he exchanged a few words with everyone and left hurriedly with a group of people. Xiaoling Yu waited for more than half an hour before he appeared. However, as soon as he appeared, a ray of light fell from the sky. The ray of light turned into a white rope and tied him up. When they were waiting just now, the large snake might have thought that Xiaoling Yu was too tired after a busy night and should be hungry. Therefore, it took advantage of the fact that Xiaoling Yu was not moving to look for food. Otherwise, the rope would not have been able to touch his body. Chapter 10. The white rope should be a good magic treasure. It tied Xiaoling Yu tightly, making it so that Xiaoling Yu couldn't move at all. Xiaoling Yu was a bit nervous. The rope made him feel a bit suffocated and painful. This kid's cultivation level isn't high. He should have just reached foundation establishment, but how could he go so deep into the ancient forest? A middle-aged cultivator wearing a wrinkled, dark blue Taoist robe narrowed his eyes and looked very surprised. This kid shouldn't have some powerful magic treasure to protect himself, right? A fat cultivator with a big head and big ears had a sneaky smile on his face. The two long whiskers on the mole on his cheek were also fluttering with his smile like two poisonous snakes. Brother Yunfei, this brat shouldn't be the one who saved your life. With your injuries at the time, he shouldn't have been able to save you with his foundation establishment cultivation. A cultivator wearing a cloak said in an indifferent tone. His face couldn't be seen clearly. The young man who was saved by Xiaoling Yu slowly walked in front of Xiaoling Yu. He first walked around Xiaoling Yu and then smelled Xiaoling Yu. Finally, he said with certainty, "He saved me. Brother Ba, please accept the immortal binding rope." The fat cultivator walked up and patted the young man's shoulder. Brother Yunfei, you shouldn't be mistaken. This kid just reached foundation establishment, and we're all spirit-severing experts. How could a mere foundation establishment cultivator treat our injuries? That's right. Brother Yunfei, don't be mistaken. Be careful. Brother Yunfei, you haven't been to the depths of the ancient forest before. You don't know the dangers and strangeness here. Yunfei faintly smiled. Although his face was pale, when his smile bloomed, there was still a bit of elegance. He said, "Could it be that you all think that I would casually call someone my savior?" Everyone was speechless, but they still had some doubt on their faces. The smile on Yunfei's face disappeared, and he said with a serious tone, "Brother Ba, please use your technique to take away the immortal binding rope." It wasn't easy for cultivators to cultivate, and it was easy for them to die halfway. Because everyone only had one life, most cultivators were very respectful and concerned about their saviors. People often say, a drop of water should be repaid with a gushing spring. Then what about the favor of saving his life? Only a life for a life. The fat cultivator with the surname Ba embarrassedly laughed and quickly formed hand seals. He then shouted, "Withdraw." Suddenly, a ray of light flew out from the fat cultivator's finger and landed on Xiaoling Yu's body. The white rope that was tightly binding Xiaoling Yu immediately loosed and flew toward the fat cultivator's face. What made Xiaoling Yu feel incomparably mystical was that the white rope turned into two white whiskers on the fat cultivator's face. There was also a black mole at the base of the whiskers. There was a mole on each of his cheeks, and there were two whiskers on each mole. However, they were black and white in color, appearing symmetrical and strange. Even Xiaoling Yu could guess that the two black whiskers were probably extremely powerful magic treasures. The fat cultivator cupped his meaty hands into fists and said to Xiaoling Yu in an apologetic manner, "Little brother, I'm sorry. I only tied you up for safety's sake. You also know that this place is very dangerous, so we have to be careful. Forgive us, forgive us. It's fine, it's fine. It's fine as long as the matter is clear. Xiaoling Yu was also a quick-witted person. Although he was angry and could see the contempt in the fat cultivator's eyes and the disdain the others had for him, he pretended that he was ignorant and replied with a smile. What method did this little brother use to save Brother Yunfei? The middle-aged cultivator in Taoist robes shook his fist at Xiaoling Yu and asked in a seemingly curious and harmless manner. I used some medicinal herbs picked from the mountains, Xiaoling Yu vaguely replied, but his expression was very calm. Although he was indeed young, he had experienced a lot on Earth and had seen a lot of the ways of the world and social interactions. He was not a rash person. Moreover, in the 5 years that he had spent with Jiang Lanyue, he had a certain understanding of the cultivation world. What kind of medicinal herb could have such a miraculous effect? The fat cultivator asked curiously, his whiskers seeming to dance even more happily. You all seem to have too many questions. This brother is my savior. I haven't even had time to say a few words of thanks before you all start asking questions one after another. The young man called Yunfei said with a frown, his expression a bit unhappy. It's just a small matter. Don't worry about it. It's not like I saved your life, Xiaoling Yu said very generously. Yunfei admired a young cultivator who had just completed the foundation establishment stage for being so magnanimous, but this made the others very suspicious. As for the medicinal herb, in fact, with senior's knowledge, you all should know that it is the mixed yuan muscle-bone grass. I was fortunate enough to collect 2 before. Later, I used one when I was injured, and the other one was used on Senior Yunfei, Xiaoling Yu said very politely. A mere foundation establishment stage cultivator naturally had to address a severed soul stage cultivator as senior. After all, there were several large cultivation realms between them. It was like heaven and earth. Mixed yuan muscle-bone grass? After hearing Xiaoling Yu's explanation, the severed soul stage cultivators, including Yunfei, frowned slightly. They had never heard of this medicinal herb before, so little brother was fortunate enough to obtain such a rare medicinal herb. No wonder you were able to save Brother Yunfei. The fat cultivator's mind raced for a moment before he suddenly realized something. It was as if he really did know about the mixed yuan muscle-bone grass. The cultivators in Taoist robes and cloaked cultivators also voiced their agreement. Yunfei didn't say that he knew about the mixed yuan muscle-bone grass. Instead, he said very sincerely, "No wonder I smelled a familiar scent from you. So it was because we've all used this medicinal herb before." Xiaoling Yu laughed in his heart because he had made up the mixed yuan muscle-bone grass. He laughed at the hypocrisy of these cultivators and also laughed at his own lie. It seemed that he had explained another problem for himself. At this moment, Xiaoling Yu's huge snake finally returned. However, Xiaoling Yu used his spiritual connection to order it to stay away from him. The huge snake was still in the form of a 1-foot-long snake. Moreover, it had concealed its qi and was looking at Xiaoling Yu from not far away. After that, Yunfei bowed and thanked Xiaoling Yu again. He refused to let Xiaoling Yu call him senior, no matter what. Perhaps it was because he had saved his life. Yunfei directly asked Xiaoling Yu to call him brother and introduced himself. Yunfei's name was Ge Yunfei. He was an elite disciple of the Void Inquiry Stage immortal sect on the Flying Feather Continent. His master was the sect master of the Void Inquiry Stage, Yulingzi. The Void Inquiry Stage was also one of the strongest peak immortal sects on the Flying Feather Continent. Their sect master, Yulingzi, was an expert whose cultivation base had already reached the late body integration stage. The fat cultivator, the middle-aged cultivator who was wearing a Taoist robe, and the cultivator who was wearing a cloak were all rogue cultivators who didn't belong to any sect. The reason they entered the depths of this desolate ancient forest was to handle an extremely troublesome, yet very tempting matter. However, they felt that the 3 of them weren't strong enough to handle it. Therefore, they asked Ge Yunfei for help. Ge Yunfei didn't say much about the specific situation. However, Xiaoling Yu could also guess that the 3 rogue cultivators must have made some kind of deal with Ge Yunfei. Moreover, Gu Yunfei must have helped the three rogue cultivators a lot. That was why Gu Yunfei could put on airs in front of them, and why they were always smiling at Gu Yunfei. All right, I still have some other matters to attend to. I'll take my leave now. You guys can continue with your important matters. After chatting with these people for a while, Xiao Yu felt that even though he and Gu Yunfei got along well, he didn't have much in common with the other three. Therefore, he prepared to leave. Before this, Jiang Lanyue had told him that the life and cultivation of rogue cultivators were extremely difficult. They didn't have the protection of a sect to provide them with cultivation resources. Their path of cultivation was even more bumpy and difficult. This made them less confident and superior compared to the disciples of the big sects, but more scheming and cautious. One must be careful when interacting with this kind of cultivators. Brother Xiao, your cultivation is still shallow. I'm afraid that it will be difficult for you to walk out of this desolate ancient forest alone. Moreover, there's a very powerful and ferocious snake wreaking havoc in this area. Why don't you come with us? Gu Yunfei sincerely said. You guys have important matters to attend to. I'm just a mere foundation establishment cultivator, so I won't be of much help. Instead, I'll only cause trouble for you guys. If you encounter any danger, I'll have to trouble you guys to protect me. I won't disturb you guys. Since I was able to come in, I'll definitely be able to walk out safely. Xiao Yu waved his hand and said, although going with the Yunfei and the others would increase his safety on the surface, Xiao Yu felt that with the protection of the snake, he would be able to walk out safely. After all, didn't these people still lose to the snake even when they joined forces? It's no trouble at all. Right now, we're not far from our destination. Brother Xiao should come with us so that we can take care of each other on the way back. The fat man, surnamed Ba, first transmitted a message to the other two rogue cultivators and then said very politely, that's right. If you go back alone and something happens to you on the way back, it will be difficult for Brother Yunfei to repay us for saving your life. The cultivator wearing a Taoist robe also tried to persuade Xiao Lingyu to stay. Could it be that Brother Xiao feels uneasy going with us? Or do you have other important matters to attend to? The cloaked cultivator straightforwardly asked. I don't have any important matters to attend to. Right now, I just want to leave this forest. Since you guys have invited me, I'll respectfully accept. In the future, I'll have to trouble you guys to take care of me. Xiao Lingyu paused for a moment before agreeing. If he didn't agree, these people would suspect him. Although the snake could defeat these people, it couldn't quickly kill them while protecting itself. If they had any ideas about Xiao Lingyu, it would be very difficult for the snake to protect him. Chapter 11. Gu Yunfei should be treating him with sincerity, but the three rogue cultivators probably had ulterior motives. Their journey was already fraught with difficulties, but they still had to bring along a burden that had just reached foundation establishment. Furthermore, they seemed to be very willing and happy. Xiao Lingyu definitely didn't believe that there wasn't a problem. However, Xiao Lingyu wasn't very afraid. He had the large snake protecting him from the shadows. Furthermore, Gu Yunfei viewed him as a savior. If there really was an unforeseen event, he believed that with Gu Yunfei and the large snake, he would be safe. I won't hide it from Brother Xiao. These three people and I only have a mutually beneficial relationship. You are my savior, so they might not necessarily accept you. Thus, if we encounter any danger later on, you must be by my side. Gu Yunfei transmitted his voice to Xiao Lingyu to remind him. Xiao Lingyu's expression didn't change. He only nodded and smiled inwardly. Following that, everyone soared into the air and flew towards a certain location in the desolate ancient forest on their magic treasures. The large snake didn't fly into the air. Instead, it followed closely in the forest, maintaining its connection with Xiao Lingyu's mind. Along the way, everyone was chatting and laughing. They appeared to be very close and united. However, the three rogue cultivators frequently transmitted their voice to each other, causing Xiao Lingyu to see them. The three rogue cultivators constantly glanced at Xiao Lingyu with ill intentions, causing Xiao Lingyu to be very nervous. He could only constantly remind the large snake to follow closely and be prepared to attack at any time. They weren't very far from their destination. After only 2 hours, everyone descended from the sky. In front of them was a valley surrounded by 4 tall mountain peaks. There was no entrance, and the entire valley was shrouded in dense fog, making it difficult to see clearly. The lower half of the 4 mountain peaks were tightly connected, while the upper half towered into the clouds. They looked like 4 gigantic swords that only revealed half of their bodies. We've finally arrived, but the fog here is even thicker than last time. I wonder if Brother Yunfei's floating cloud hand will be able to disperse the fog? The cultivator wearing a cloak said in a flat tone, "This valley is too big. I can only disperse a part of it." Gu Yunfei said after pondering for a moment, "Just a part of it is enough. As long as we can thin out the fog, it will be of great help to our next move," said the fat cultivator with the surname Ba with a nod. "There is no time to lose. Let's rest up first before attacking," the cultivator in Taoist robes said. Next, Gu Yunfei and the other 3 sat down cross-legged and meditated. Each of them held a shimmering spirit stone in their hands. Xiaoling Yu also pretended to meditate, but he did not actually cultivate. His master had warned him that it was best for him to cultivate alone. 2 hours later, Gu Yunfei and the others woke up. The cloaked cultivator patted his waist, and several red lights flew out, transforming into 4 triangular banners that fluttered in the wind. The triangular banners weren't large at this time. The flagpole was about a foot long, and there were some strange runes engraved on it. On the banner cloth, there was an azure dragon, a white tiger, a vermilion bird, and a black tortoise. Gu Yunfei took the banner with the white tiger. After the others flew into the sky, he said to Xiao Lingyu, "In a moment, the 4 of us will set up a formation. We might not be able to take care of you, so be careful. Generally, there won't be any demonic beasts or ferocious beasts coming here." Xiao Lingyu nodded and said, "Don't worry. You also have to be careful." Gu Yunfei patted Xiao Lingyu's shoulder. Just as he was about to participate in setting up the formation, he took out a golden token and gave it to Xiao Lingyu, saying, "This is a golden shield treasure talisman. If you encounter danger, you only need to pour a bit of true qi into it, and it will automatically expand, blocking the danger for you." Xiao Lingyu didn't stand on ceremony. After receiving the treasure talisman, he said, "Thank you. You should go quickly. They must be waiting anxiously." Only then did Gu Yunfei feel relieved and went to stand on the top of a mountain. Xiao Lingyu originally planned to leave without saying goodbye while these people were casting the spell, but now he changed his mind because he felt that Gu Yunfei was quite loyal and worthy of a deep friendship. Moreover, he was also very curious about what these people were doing here. Looking up at the sky, Gu Yunfei and the other 3 were sitting cross-legged on the top of a mountain. The 4 banners were also rapidly expanding. The flagpoles were no less than 100 feet tall, and the banners were also fluttering in the wind. The divine beast depicted on the banners seemed to be about to come to life, looking very lively. After a while, the 4 of them spat out a ball of blood essence and let it sink into the banners. Then Gu Yunfei stood up alone, his hands constantly moving in front of his chest. Waves of spiritual light quickly emerged between his fingers and intertwined, forming a group of magical seals. Floating cloud hand, dispel the clouds and see the sun. Following Gu Yunfei's earth-shattering roar, his hands suddenly pushed forward. Countless groups of seals slanted out at the same time, rapidly forming an incomparably huge handprint in the air. What entered their eyes was a huge palm that was no less than 1,000 feet in length. It flipped through the clouds and mist, stirring up layers of dense fog. It had the momentum of sweeping through the world and dispelling the clouds to see the sun. Xiaoling's blood boiled as he watched. The methods and magical powers of cultivators were really shocking and yearning. In the past, he had only heard about it and didn't think it was too magical. But now that he saw it with his own eyes, it was definitely a different feeling. Gu Yunfei didn't stop the movements of his hands. After another series of hand seals, he shouted again. Floating cloud hand, clouds into the 9 heavens. The seals from his hands all sank into the huge palm from before. The huge palm crazily rotated and slowly rose. It was actually wrapped in clouds and mist as it moved towards the sky, gradually forming a cloud vortex. The vortex was like a tornado's wind column, and also like a huge dragon that was preparing to leap into the sky, constantly twisting its body. Xiao Yu was dumbfounded as he watched. The desire in his heart to become stronger became even stronger. The dense fog in the valley disappeared at a speed visible to the naked eye, and everything in the valley gradually became clear. However, at this moment, a demonic beast that seemed to have been hiding in the dense fog all this time revealed itself. This demonic beast's body was very large. Its body was covered with snow-white hair, and it had 6 thin, transparent wings. It also had 2 long antennae and 2 large black eyes that almost occupied its entire head. In its mouth, there were 2 sharp fangs that were like swords. It also had 6 slender legs, a round belly, and a tail that was like a javelin. From Xiao Yu's point of view, this flying demon beast looked like a bee no matter how he looked at it. However, it was white, and the number of wings and slender legs, as well as its size, were far from an ordinary bee. Gu Yunfei stopped casting and instead sat down cross-legged. Then, like the other 3 rogue cultivators, he began to silently chant an incantation. The banners around them began to rapidly expand again. When a huge white bee saw the banners, it became very violent. It flapped its wings and rushed over. Just as the huge white bee moved, each of the 4 banners shot out a spirit light. It actually connected the 4 mountains together, forming a rhombus-shaped encirclement. Gu Yunfei didn't care about the huge white bee that was rushing towards him. Instead, he shot a spirit light into the banner beside him. Suddenly, the banner's power surged and shot out a spirit light that was as thick as a tree towards the huge white bee. In the sky above the valley, the wind and clouds suddenly surged. Xiao Yu could no longer see the situation over there. He waited for a full 4 hours before the battle in the sky above the valley came to an end. Gu Yunfei's clothes were tattered and there were many wounds on his body. Blood was constantly spurting out from his mouth. He flew down from the sky in such a sorry state. When he reached Xiao Yu's side, he said to Xiao Yu, "Run, don't worry about me." After saying this, Gu Yunfei fainted again. In the sky, 3 more streaks of light flew over. Xiao Yu could see that the 3 streaks of light were the 3 rogue cultivators. Xiao Yu didn't understand the situation, so he wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, he used his mind to communicate with the serpent and prepared to make a move at any time. The 3 rogue cultivators landed in front of Xiao Yu. They were also in a sorry state and had suffered heavy injuries. "Have you all completed your mission?" Xiao Yu saw that Gu Yunfei had only fainted due to his heavy injuries and wasn't in any immediate danger. His heart calmed down, but he still cautiously asked the 3 rogue cultivators. The fat cultivator, surnamed Ba, said, "Of course we completed it. Otherwise, how could we be standing here alive?" The middle-aged cultivator wearing a Taoist robe said with concern, "Brother Yunfei seems to have fainted. Let's quickly treat his injuries." The cloaked cultivator didn't say anything. Instead, he quietly crossed his arms in front of his chest. Xiao Yu waved his hand and said, "There's no need. I can treat his injuries." "Oh, could it be that little brother still has origin flesh-bone grass?" The fat cultivator, surnamed Ba, curiously asked. Xiao Yu calmly said, "I have other methods to treat his injuries." Their mission had been completed, but Gu Yunfei had told him to escape before he fainted. It was clear that there was a big problem. At this moment, Xiao Yu absolutely couldn't trust these 3 rogue cultivators. "Then I asked little brother Xiao to quickly treat brother Yunfei. Once a cultivator is heavily injured, we can't delay," the Taoist rogue middle-aged cultivator urged. Xiao Yu said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, "Everyone's mission has been completed. You may leave brother Yunfei to me." Brother Yunfei was injured while helping us. How can we leave him here alone? You and Brother Yunfei have only known each other for a short period of time. We don't dare to hand him over to you. Brother Xiao, please treat Brother Yunfei's injuries in front of us, the fat cultivator surnamed Ba said, not allowing Xiao Chun to refuse. Xiao Lingyu muttered to himself for a moment before saying, "All right then. Since everyone is worried, I will treat his injuries in front of everyone. There is still a lot of medicinal power left in my body from the origin flesh-bone grass. If I send this medicinal power into Brother Yunfei's body, he will be able to recover." The three rogue cultivators nodded and indicated for Xiao Lingyu to begin. They didn't doubt Xiao Lingyu at all. Xiao Lingyu didn't dawdle. He placed his hands on Gu Yunfei's back and slowly circulated his primal chaos essence qi. At this moment, the three rogue cultivators suddenly stood in three different directions and surrounded Xiao Lingyu and Gu Yunfei in a triangle. Then, they simultaneously sent out a palm strike. Suddenly, three incomparably powerful auras attacked. If nothing unexpected happened, with Xiao Lingyu's recent foundation establishment cultivation and Gu Yunfei's unconscious state, the two of them would definitely be killed by these three auras. Chapter 12. The three rogue cultivators were all experts at the spirit severing stage. Their attacks were naturally not something that Xiao Lingyu, who had just reached the foundation establishment stage, could withstand. At this moment, although Xiao Lingyu was extremely shocked, he did not panic. He immediately poured some vital energy into the golden shield talisman treasure in his hand and blocked the incoming wind. As for the other two attacks, Xiao Lingyu was powerless to deal with them. He could only place his hopes on the serpent. A golden light flew out from Xiao Lingyu's body and turned into a golden shield in an instant, blocking in front of him and Gu Yunfei. The serpent had always been highly focused because it did not dare to be careless and take risks. If Xiao Lingyu died, it would also die. Just as the three rogue cultivators attacked, the serpent pounced over and spat out two ice crystal-like water arrows at the same time. The golden shield talisman treasure was of very high quality and successfully blocked the opponent's chi attack. The serpent did not disappoint Xiao Lingyu. The water arrows it spat out also scattered the other two chi attacks. Perhaps because Xiao Lingyu's cultivation was too weak and Gu Yunfei was seriously injured and unconscious, the three rogue cultivators did not attack with all their strength. In their opinion, their casual attacks were enough to kill Xiao Lingyu and Gu Yunfei. However, the truth was not so. They did not expect the serpent to suddenly attack. The serpent's strength was much stronger than theirs. The three rogue cultivators could not discover the serpent at all. At this time, the three rogue cultivators were all shocked. They took a few steps back at the same time and looked at the serpent with great vigilance. The serpent had already returned to its original size. It coiled up like a small mountain. It bared its sharp fangs and flicked its long snake tongue, looking very angry and violent. These three rogue cultivators wanted to take Xiao Lingyu's life. In the serpent's eyes, it was equivalent to taking its life. How could it not be angry? As for the golden shield, it did not seem to have consumed much energy. It was still hanging in front of Xiao Lingyu and Gu Yunfei. The three rogue cultivators looked at each other and attacked again. The middle-aged cultivator wearing a Taoist robe tossed out an 8 trigrams yin-yang mirror. The cloaked cultivator took off his cloak and tossed it into the air. The fat cultivator, surnamed Ba's black and white beard, gradually grew thicker and longer, resembling two poisonous snakes that were about to devour their prey. The 8 trigrams yin-yang mirror floated motionlessly in the air. Waves of pressure poured down from it, and the black and white lights intertwined. The black cloak gradually expanded, as if it could cover the sky and cover the sun. Furthermore, it was still spinning crazily, as if it was about to form a black hole that could swallow everything. The black and white beards turned into 2 ropes, one black and one white, ready to attack at any time. Gu Yunfei's strength was extraordinary, but now that he was unconscious, They could only rely on Xiao Lingyu and Orochi to deal with this situation. If only Orochi was here, it could easily defeat the three of them. However, Orochi also needed to protect Xiao Lingyu, who was also present. This would greatly restrict Orochi's freedom and overall strength. Therefore, Xiao Lingyu was very worried. The Dharma treasures released by the three of them gave him a lot of pressure. He, who had never really seen a battle between strong cultivators, could not calm down at all. However, even so, he still hugged Gu Yunfei tightly. Although Gu Yunfei was much stronger than him and had experienced more hardships than him, in his opinion, Gu Yunfei was now a patient. While he was in perfect condition, he should be in front of him. Even on Earth, where interpersonal relationships were very complicated and the morals of the world were deteriorating day by day, Xiao Lingyu had never been a petty person. He would never betray the people he liked. This was one of his principles. The reason why Gu Xiaoman was willing to date him was also because of this. However, Xiao Lingyu still underestimated Orochi. The Orochi had already experienced the Dharma treasures of the three of them. Although Xiao Lingyu was powerless against them, they were not very effective against Orochi. Orochi's tongue was like a divine whip that constantly swept in all directions. Streams of water arrows were also constantly spat out from its mouth, turning all of the attacks into nothing. Even if there was some residual force that occasionally leaked through, it would be blocked by the golden shield talisman treasure. As the battle continued, Orochi saw that the three of them were unwilling to give up. It also became a bit angry. After a heaven-shaking roar, the purple radiance on its body immediately flashed wildly. Then, it spat out a miniature Orochi from its mouth. Although it was a miniature snake, it was still more than 3 meters long. Furthermore, this large snake had 4 claws and a jagged horn on its forehead. No matter how one looked at it, it didn't look like a snake at all. It looked more like a dragon. While the 3 rogue cultivators were still in shock, a vast and mighty dragon might had already covered the sky and covered the earth. How was this possible? It's a dragon infant. The fat cultivator, surnamed Ba, shouted in incomparable shock. Just as the 3 rogue cultivators were in a daze, the dragon infant had already flown in a circle in the air, smashing the 8 trigrams yin-yang mirror, the black cloak, and the 2 ropes into pieces. Such a spirit treasure was actually as weak as tofu in front of the dragon infant. It was truly unbelievable. Retreat. It was unknown who shouted this, but the 3 rogue cultivators immediately fled without a trace. Because the Orochi still had to protect Xiao Lingyu, it did not chase after them. However, the dragon infant let out a heaven-shaking dragon roar before returning to the Orochi's mouth, which frightened the nearby demon beasts and ferocious beasts into trembling. Good job. Seeing that the strong enemy had retreated, Xiao Lingyu patted the head of the snake that was asking for credit and praised it generously. The serpent raised its head high with a proud look on its face. Be careful. Maybe those guys will turn back. Xiao Lingyu patted the Orochi's waist again. After giving some instructions, he straightened Gu Yunfei's body and sat behind Gu Yunfei, officially beginning to treat Gu Yunfei's injuries. This time, Gu Yunfei's injuries were more serious than the previous time. Perhaps it was because the previous injuries had not been completely healed. Xiao Lingyu used a full 6 hours to finish the treatment. Moreover, he was so tired that his body was covered in sweat and his vision was blurry. After finishing the treatment, Xiao Lingyu directly entered a meditative state to cultivate. The chaotic energy between heaven and earth slowly gathered around him and seeped into his body. Another 2 hours passed before he woke up. Not only was the exhaustion on his face gone, but there was also a smile of joy on his face. He discovered that using all his strength to circulate the chaotic essence for a long period of time had not only strengthened his control over the chaotic essence, but it had also allowed him to make quite a bit of progress in the process of recovery. In the future, if I open a medical center in the cultivation world and specialize in treating people's injuries, it will be a good business. After waking up, Xiao Lingyu thought proudly, Brother Xiao, thank you for saving my life again. Just as Xiao Lingyu was feeling proud for a moment, he saw Gu Yunfei, who had been awake for a long time, bowing to him in gratitude. He hurriedly supported Gu Yunfei and sincerely said, "Brother Yunfei, you're welcome. The golden shield talisman you gave me was also a great help. Moreover, before you fainted, you didn't forget to remind me to run away. If I abandoned you and ran away, I wouldn't be a man." Gu Yunfei didn't bow down, but said with a disappointed face, "It's all my fault. I didn't expect that those 3 shameless people would be so ruthless to me after the deed was done." At this point, Gu Yunfei's disappointed face turned into a face of resentment. Those who are unjust are doomed to destruction. They are so unjust and immoral. Sooner or later, they won't have a good ending. Brother Yunfei, you should be more open-minded and don't take it to heart. At worst, you could take revenge when you meet them in the future. Xiao Lingyu said in a genteel manner. Fortunately, he had learned some ancient Chinese when he was in school and had watched many ancient Chinese dramas. He could barely cope with a few sentences. "If I meet them in the future, I will definitely pull out their tendons and skin them alive. I will burn their bones and scatter their ashes." Gu Yunfei said with clenched fists. His 10 knuckles were crackling. Count me in," Xiao Lingyu said with a loyal smile. "That's right, this big snake has a lot to do with you, right?" Gu Yunfei asked as he pointed at the big snake that was lazily lying down not far away. "Yes, I just kept it. It was the one that injured you before." Brother Yunfei, please don't take it to heart. At that time, I thought that a few demonic beasts came to disturb us, so I let it go. I didn't know that it was you guys." Xiao Lingyu nodded and said with a very magnanimous smile, "That's fine." Gu Yunfei first waved his hand to indicate that he didn't have any other thoughts. Then he said, "But Brother Xiao is clearly only in the foundation establishment stage. How could you have such a mystical big snake?" Xiao Lingyu had the protection of this big snake. Naturally, it could explain why he could enter the desolate ancient forest with a mere foundation establishment stage cultivation. However, Gu Yunfei's question made it very difficult for Xiao Lingyu to explain. I was too impetuous. I shouldn't have asked this. Brother Zhao's big snake was probably given to you by an elder." Gu Yunfei saw Xiao Lingyu's awkward expression and realized that he was a bit rude. He hurriedly explained. It was indeed given to me by an elder." Xiao Lingyu nodded with a smile. He didn't lie. Fundamentally speaking, this big snake was indeed subdued by the master he had never met and used to protect him. Gu Yunfei didn't ask any more questions. Between cultivators, even if they were good friends, it was taboo to ask about other people's private matters unless they were willing to tell you. "Brother Xiao, since we were able to meet in this desolate ancient forest and experience hardships and dangers together, why don't we become brothers with different surnames?" Gu Yunfei very seriously suggested. "I'm only in the foundation establishment stage, but you've already saved me, a severed soul stage expert, twice." Gu Yunfei didn't wait for Xiao Lingyu to finish her words before continuing. Xiao Lingyu thought in his heart. He was indeed a foundation establishment stage cultivator. Moreover, other than this huge snake and those relatives and friends who he didn't know if they were alive or not, he was basically all alone in this world with no one to rely on. If he could really have an elite disciple of a big immortal sect as a sworn brother, it would be a good thing. If Brother Yunfei doesn't mind, I'm more than willing, Xiao Lingyu said sincerely. Then what are we waiting for? You, and I will make a vow to the heavens right here and now. From now on, we'll share our blessings and endure our misfortunes together. We don't ask to be born on the same day, month, and year, but we ask to die on the same day, month, and year. We'll cultivate diligently together, ascend to the immortal world, and charge into the God realm. Gu Yunfei heavily patted Xiao Lingyu's shoulder and spoke in an extremely forthright and generous manner. Chapter 13. With heaven and earth as a witness, they made a blood oath. Xiao Lingyu and Gu Yunfei had become sworn brothers. Gu Yunfei was the elder brother, and Xiao Lingyu was the younger brother. The two of them swore on their souls that they would never betray their vows. Otherwise, their souls would scatter. Cultivators wouldn't easily become sworn brothers because the oath couldn't be erased. No matter how much your cultivation improved in the future, you couldn't go back on your vows. Furthermore, cultivators couldn't bear the punishment for going back on their vows. Although Xiaoling Yu didn't know Gu Yunfei very well, with this oath, at least Gu Yunfei wouldn't betray him. Moreover, with his current situation, Gu Yunfei probably didn't have anything to worry about. Since he dared to make such an oath with Xiaoling Yu, it was enough to see that Gu Yunfei was a straightforward and upright person. He didn't have any intention of scheming against Xiaoling Yu. Brother, today is a happy day. Big brother here has a bottle of spirit wine that has been aged for 1,000 years. Let's drink it clean today. Gu Yunfei pulled Xiaoling Yu to sit down and took out a grass-green jade pot from his storage magic treasure. Not to mention the quality of his spirit wine within the pot. Merely the jade pot was extraordinary, because not only was it exquisitely crafted, the aura that flowed out from it as soon as it appeared gave Xiaoling Yu a comfortable feeling from head to toe. Brother, although this wine is good, I don't have the fortune to enjoy it. I'm afraid that even a drop of this 1,000-year-old spirit wine is enough to make me explode in front of you. Xiaoling Yu saw Gu Yunfei take out 2 jade wine cups and hurriedly press down on the lid of the wine pot as he explained with a bitter smile. Gu Yunfei was stunned at first. Then he patted his head and said, "Look at how excited I was. I actually forgot about this. This wine has been treasured by me for many years. It's really a pity that I can't drink it with my brother today." Just as Gu Yunfei was patting his head in regret, he was caught off guard. The snake, which had been sleeping on the side, suddenly smelled the aroma and got up. It stretched out its forked tongue and rolled the wine pot over. "Bring it back, or I'll throw you into the wine cellar." Xiaoling Yu hurriedly shouted to stop her. Unfortunately, he was still too late. Although the serpent had returned the flagon, it was already empty. Gu Yunfei was very pained, but that big snake was his brother's pet and had just saved their lives, so he naturally wouldn't complain. Instead, he pretended not to care and said, "This big snake is really naughty, spitting out dates in a hurry. How can it taste the wonderful taste of the 1,000-year-old spirit wine? It's fine if it can't taste it, but drinking an entire flagon of spirit wine is not that easy to endure." This was the truth. After drinking this flagon of spirit wine, the serpent directly became drunk. It was like a pile of mud that could not be woken up. Although this spirit wine has been aged for 1,000 years, the ingredients used are very precious. Every time a severed soul stage cultivator like me drinks a cup, I will be drunk for several hours before I can sober up. Although little brother serpent is mystical and demonic beasts have a stronger resistance to spirit wine than human cultivators, after drinking an entire flagon, it will be drunk for at least 3 to 5 years before it can wake up. Gu Yunfei explained to Xiaoling Yu with a smile. 3 to 5 years. Xiaoling Yu was dumbfounded. For ordinary cultivators, 3 to 5 years would pass in the blink of an eye. However, for him, it was a bit too long. Gu Yunfei liked to drink wine, but the wine he collected was not low grade. None of them were suitable for Xiaoling Yu, who had just entered the foundation establishment stage. Thus, the two didn't drink and just sat on the side and casually chatted. As for the serpent, Gu Yunfei gave Xiaoling Yu a decent spirit beast pouch. Xiaoling Yu directly put it into the spirit beast pouch. In the next 3 to 5 years, Xiaoling Yu couldn't rely on the serpent to protect him. This made him very depressed. Xiaoling Yu only vaguely talked about his past, while Gu Yunfei gave Xiaoling Yu a detailed introduction of the Feiyu continent. As for the situation of the entire cultivation world, Gu Yunfei didn't know as much as Jiang Lanyue. The Feiyu continent was just a continent that was discovered less than 1 million years ago. Just like the other continents, it was floating in the vast starry sky of the cultivation world. It wasn't connected to the other continents. Most of the cultivators came and went through teleportation formations. The Feiyu continent was discovered not long ago. Thus, there were many places that cultivators had not set foot on, especially this desolate ancient forest. It was a very famous place on the Feyue continent, because it was very dangerous. Countless demon beasts lived here. At the same time, it also contained countless heavenly materials and earthly treasures. Many cultivators liked to enter this desolate ancient forest to search for treasures, especially rogue cultivators who didn't have a lot of wealth. Outside this desolate ancient forest, there were also some cultivation cities. There were also quite a number of powerful sects that built their mountain bases in the periphery of this desolate ancient forest. The Void Inquiry Stage Immortal sect that Gu Yunfei belonged to was one of them. This time, Gu Yunfei had just finished his secluded cultivation. He wanted to come out to take a breather and gain some experience. That was why he agreed to work with the 3 rogue cultivators and earn some extra income for himself. After all, the Void Inquiry Stage Immortal sect was a huge sect. Even though he was the personal disciple of the sect leader, he did not have unlimited cultivation resources that he could squander. However, he did not expect that after he helped the 3 rogue cultivators complete their mission by killing that huge white wasp and obtaining the 10,000 years old wasp king stone in the beehive, not only did the 3 rogue cultivators not repay him according to their agreement, they even attacked him when he was almost out of strength. If Gu Yunfei was in his peak condition at that time, even if he wasn't a match for the 3 rogue cultivators, he could still escape with ease. However, with his current condition, it was already not easy for him to escape and report to Shaolin Yu when he was attacked by the 3 rogue cultivators together. "Big brother, you've suffered a great loss this time," Shaolin Yu said with a smile. "It's not really a loss. At least I got to know a good brother who is worth befriending." Gu Yunfei shook his head and said, "It's fine as long as we're all fine. We'll have plenty of chances to get even with them in the future." Shaolin Yu comforted him. "I'm just afraid that they've gone into hiding. It's impossible for me to mobilize the power of the sect to look for them. Besides, even though they're rogue cultivators, they also have quite a powerful force supporting them from behind. If it wasn't for that, how would they dare to attack me? Why would I come out and work with them? However, if I really bump into them, humph. Even if the Heavenly Emperor protects them, I'll still take their lives. It's better for such untrustworthy and disloyal people to die in peace." Gu Yunfei said angrily, "Hee, they have indeed gone too far this time. However, I still feel a little puzzled. Since they asked you for help, they must know that your strength is extraordinary and they also know your identity. Previously, they had also paid you half of the reward. They don't have the ability to kill you, but they still dared to attack you. Aren't they afraid that the Void Inquiry Stage will hunt them down to the ends of the earth after this matter is exposed? The benefits that they can get after killing you shouldn't be worth it for them to do that." Shaolin Yu said with a little doubt, "I'm also very puzzled. They have always been polite to me. Even when they ran away and abandoned me when I was fighting against your huge snake, I didn't feel any killing intent from them. However, ever since I met you..." Gu Yunfei suddenly paused. Then, he narrowed his eyes and muttered to himself for a while. Then, as if he had just realized something, he said, "Oh, right. The problem should be you." "Me?" Shaolin Yu was even more puzzled. "Yes, it's you. Actually, I've always been able to feel that there's something strange in your body. It seems like it's overflowing from a very powerful magic treasure. I reckon that they have also sensed it. That's why they wanted to kill you. However, you're my savior. I've always wanted to protect you. Therefore, if they want to kill you, they need my permission. Since they know that I won't agree to it, they might as well kill me as well." Gu Yunfei quickly analyzed the situation. Shaolin Yu knew where the aura that Gu Yunfei was talking about came from. It was the silver needles that he brought out from the ancient god's cave and the 2 pieces of the silver moon dagger that Jiang Lanhua left behind. These things weren't ordinary items. Moreover, they came from the God realm. Even if they couldn't display much power in Shaolin Yu's hands, the aura that occasionally overflowed was not to be underestimated. Actually, it's not a powerful magic treasure. It's just a small toy that Master gave me before he left. Shaolin Yu took out the silver needles and the 2 pieces of the dagger and said vaguely. Xiaoling Yu reckoned that even if his brother Gu Yunfei had extraordinary knowledge and was an expert at the spirit-severing stage, he still wouldn't be able to see through the origin of these things. In fact, this was indeed the case. Gu Yunfei only took a few curious glances and then didn't look at them anymore. Instead, he pointed to the top and asked, "Your master left? Did he go to the upper realm?" Xiaoling Yu sighed and said he didn't ascend. Instead, he died and turned into ashes. These things and that huge snake were given to me by him before he passed away. I also became his disciple at that time. Oh, Gu Yunfei nodded gently and didn't continue the topic. Instead, he asked, "What do you plan to do in the future, little brother?" "I don't have any plans. I'll just cultivate diligently by myself. Master gave me a lot of missions that I need to cultivate diligently to complete. Also, I have a lot of relatives that I need to look for." Xiaoling Yu said in a depressed tone, "Why don't you join our Void Inquiry Stage Immortal Sect? At least we can look after each other. As for the matter of looking for your relatives and friends, I can help you." Gu Yunfei invited him sincerely. Xiaoling Yu shook his head and said, "Firstly, my master doesn't allow me to take other people as my master. Secondly, my cultivation foundation and aptitude are very poor. I'm afraid that a famous sect like the Void Inquiry Stage Immortal Sect won't accept me." Gu Yunfei frowned and thought for a while. After a while, he said, "I have an idea. The Void Inquiry Stage Immortal Sect has a few low-grade spiritual medicine gardens. One of them is under my management. You can go there and settle down first. Those spiritual medicine gardens aren't that important. Most of the people who look after them are outer sect disciples or nominal disciples. They're the same as you. They haven't officially joined the Void Inquiry Stage Immortal Sect, and they don't have an Identity Jade token. That's good too. I'll have to trouble Big Brother to look after me in the future." Xiaoling Yu thought that he indeed did not have a better place to go. Thus, he agreed. At least, he would feel more at ease if he could get along with Gu Yunfei. "We're brothers. Why do we need to be so polite? By the way, I have a storage pouch here. You can keep it and hide the treasures your master left behind to prevent others from discovering them." Gu Yunfei first punched Xiaoling Yu's chest. Then, he took out a storage pouch and gave it to Xiaoling Yu. Xiaoling Yu did not reject it. He indeed needed such a magic treasure. As for Gu Yunfei's kindness and gift, he could only repay him in the future. "The way you're dressed is a little strange. Your figure is about the same as mine. You can use my clothes for a few days. I'll buy some more for you when we return to the sect." Chapter 14. After leaving the desolate ancient forest, one would see a mountain range covered in clouds and mist. This mountain range was called the Soaring Cloud Mountain Range because the clouds and mist here were rolling like tides. They looked like a vast ocean that was flying across the sky of the mountain range. The Soaring Cloud Mountain Range and the desolate ancient forest were adjacent to each other. However, the Soaring Cloud Mountain Range was much safer than the desolate ancient forest because there were no demon beasts or ferocious beasts in the mountain range. Instead, there were spirit stone veins of different sizes. Therefore, many cultivation sects had set up their headquarters here to cultivate using the spiritual chi from the spirit veins or to mine the spirit stone veins directly. With the presence of the spirit veins, the spiritual chi here was naturally more abundant than other places. Not only was it a good place for cultivation, but it was also an ideal place to cultivate spiritual herbs. As one of the top sects in the Flying Feather Continent, the Void Inquiry Stage Immortal Sect occupied a vast area in the Soaring Cloud Mountain Range as their territory. There were 3 high-grade spirit veins that extended for nearly 1,000 li asterisk, 500 m per li, dozens of middle-grade spirit veins, and countless small spirit veins. The Void Inquiry Stage Immortal Sect would not mind the small spirit veins, but they would not give up on using them either. Most of the small spirit veins were used for disciples with weaker cultivation bases to excavate their immortal caves for cultivation. Some of the small spirit veins with relatively dense spiritual chi would be used to cultivate spiritual herbs. Of course, The Void Inquiry Stage Immortal Sect also had a lot of spiritual herb gardens. They were divided into 4 grades: Supreme Grade, High Grade, Middle Grade, and Low Grade. The spirit herb gardens on the small spirit veins were all classified as low-grade spirit herb gardens. The headquarters of the Void Inquiry Stage Immortal Sect was naturally built on top of a high-grade spirit vein mine. The spiritual chi there was very abundant. However, it was not suitable for disciples below the severed spirit realm to stay and cultivate for a long time. Most of the disciples of the Void Inquiry Stage would cultivate in the middle-grade spirit vein mine near the headquarters. As for the small spirit vein mine, they would cultivate further away from the headquarters. After Gu Yunfei returned to the Void Inquiry Stage Immortal Sect, he did not return to the headquarters directly. Instead, he brought Shaoling Yu to a low-grade spirit herb garden that was under his management. This spiritual herbal garden was located in a small valley. It was over 3,000 li asterisk, 500 m per li, away from the headquarters of the Void Inquiry Immortal Sect. The entire place was enveloped by a mid-grade spirit formation and several hundred types of restrictive spells. Anyone below the severed spirit realm would never dare to barge into the place recklessly. Gu Yunfei led Shaoling Yu straight into the spiritual herbal garden. He was the one who had personally set up the array formations and restrictions here, so he was naturally the most familiar with them. He could walk safely even with his eyes closed. As he advanced, Shaoling Yu could always hear the roars of wind and thunder, and he could faintly see bolts of lightning and flames intertwining and flickering. This made him speechless at the might of the formations and restrictions. He had a feeling that if he entered this place by mistake and did not take the correct route, he would definitely be killed in an instant. After walking for about 100 breaths of time, the scenery in front of his eyes suddenly widened. A world of birds, chirping, and fragrant flowers appeared in front of him. Spiritual chi that was very dense to Shaoling Yu was flowing towards him from all directions, making him feel very comfortable. He had the urge to spread his arms and moan softly. The entire valley was only about 500 meters wide. At the back of the valley, there were a few rows of thatched cottages. In the middle of the valley, there was a small pond that was emitting water vapor. In the pond, there were aquatic plants that looked like lotus flowers and leaves. There was also a small pavilion whose shape was blurred by the water vapor. The other places in the valley were all kinds of spiritual flowers and spiritual grasses. They were competing with each other and swaying with the wind. What do you think? Are you satisfied with this place? Gu Yunfei asked Shaoling Yu with a smile. Satisfied? Of course I'm satisfied. This place is simply a paradise. Shaoling Yu nodded his head and praised. Although he knew quite a lot about the cultivation world, he had not seen much of it with his own eyes. The layout and scenery here were definitely much better than the desolate ancient forest. The density of spiritual chi here is just right for your current cultivation. Once you complete your initial cultivation and reach the golden core stage, I'll change the place for you. Gu Yunfei said as he walked towards the thatched cottages. There are a few outer disciples here. If you want some peace and quiet, I can move them elsewhere. No need, no need. It's better to have more people. The more people there are, the merrier. Everything here needs to be taken care of. Right now, I don't know much about these flowers and plants. I also need someone to give me some pointers. Shaoling Yu said as he waved his hand. He did not want to affect the others because of his arrival. You don't need to care about these flowers and plants in the future. You just need to focus on your cultivation. Gu Yunfei said with a smile. Before he reached the thatched cottages, 3 young men wearing coarse green clothes came up to him. These 3 people did not look very old. They were about the same age as Shaoling Yu, but all of them had delicate features and extraordinary temperaments. Shaoling Yu was a little surprised. Even if these young men were wearing coarse green clothes, they still had a noble temperament. There was even a bit of pride in their bones. Why would they be willing to guard a few acres of medicinal fields here? Greetings to Grandmaster. After the 3 young outer disciples saw Gu Yunfei, they all bowed down. Gu Yunfei only responded and nodded slightly. His expression also became serious. The outer sect disciples were still bowing. They didn't dare to stand up straight. Their seniority couldn't compare to a severed soul expert like Gu Yunfei. They were simply too inferior. Gu Yunfei said in a serious voice, "This person beside me is my brother. In the future, he will live here for a period of time. You have to serve him well. If you dare to neglect him, you can forget about entering the inner sect." Disciple will remember. The three were stunned at first, but then they responded in unison. "Go do your own things." Gu Yunfei waved the three people away, then pulled Xiao Lingyu's arm and walked in front of the row of thatched cottages. Without stopping, the two passed through the row of thatched cottages and arrived in front of a small courtyard. "Little brother, this courtyard is where I usually stay. In the future, you will live here." Gu Yunfei waved his hand and formed a seal to open the courtyard door. At the same time, he said to Xiao Lingyu. When the courtyard door opened, the first thing that entered Xiao Lingyu's eyes was a bluestone path, followed by a crooked ancient tree, and then a few cottages. This courtyard originally did not belong to me. It belonged to one of my martial uncles. My martial uncle's cultivation was crippled because of carelessness. After that, he lived here until he passed away. His relationship with me was very good. Before he passed away, he left this medicinal field and this courtyard to me. I am also very respectful to him. Therefore, little brother, if there is no need, do not touch anything here. Gu Yunfei solemnly instructed. "Okay, I will remember." Xiao Lingyu also nodded seriously. The one on the left is the pill room. The one on the right is the artifact hall. In the middle is the study. I usually come here to meditate and cultivate. Gu Yunfei first pointed at a few cottages and introduced them. Then he took out a lustrous jade tablet and stuffed it into Xiao Lingyu's hand. He said, "Take this tablet with you. You can enter and leave this medicinal field and this courtyard at will. But if there is nothing else, it is best that little brother does not leave this medicinal field. This place is a bit far from the immortal sect headquarters. It is not safe. Disciples from other sects and rogue cultivators often come here. Your cultivation is still weak, so it is best that you do not come in contact with too many outsiders." After Gu Yunfei said a few more words, he left the medicinal field because he had to report back to the headquarters. At the same time, he also had to report back to the sect about what happened this time. Xiao Lingyu felt a bit helpless. Just now, Gu Yunfei did not hide his relationship with him. This made it impossible for him to have a good relationship with the other three people living in this medicinal field. However, he did not take it to heart. The storage belt that Gu Yunfei gave to Xiao Lingyu contained a lot of spirit stones and cultivation materials. This was his sincerity towards Xiao Lingyu. Xiao Lingyu was a poor foundation establishment stage cultivator, so he could not refuse his brother's good intentions. Xiao Lingyu put away the tablet and walked around the various rooms in the courtyard. After finding nothing out of the ordinary, he sat behind the desk in the study and began to read the books in the study. There were many books in the study. Most of them recorded some cultivation experiences and insights, as well as some knowledge. Xiao Lingyu cultivated the 9 revolutions chaos formula. Ordinary cultivation methods and experiences did not have much reference value to him, but they could help him broaden his horizons. For an entire month, he read books in the study. Since he had reached the foundation establishment stage, he could also go for a long time without eating or drinking. After reading those books, Xiao Lingyu walked out of the courtyard for the first time. He wanted to get himself something to eat because his mouth was so bland. When he passed by a row of thatched cottages, Xiao Lingyu bumped into an outer sect disciple. He smiled and greeted, "Brother, can I get something to eat here?" The outer sect disciple hurriedly bowed and said respectfully, "Master Ancestor, you're too kind. How can I be your brother? If you need anything, just let me know." Xiao Lingyu shook his head and said, "Don't be so restrained. Actually, my cultivation is about the same as yours. We're both foundation establishment stage." "Your foundation establishment stage? Senior, don't fool me. I'm already at the peak of the late stage of foundation establishment. If you hit the foundation establishment stage, How can I not see it? If you want to get something to eat, I'll go get it for you. That young disciple first looked at Xiao Yu in surprise, then left these words and ran away without a trace. Xiao Yu could only smile helplessly. His cultivation was different from that of normal cultivators. Therefore, generally speaking, only cultivators who were 2 levels higher than him could see through his cultivation level. For example, he was in the foundation establishment stage. Therefore, only nascent soul stage cultivators could see through his cultivation level. The outer sect disciple who was talking to Xiao Yu just now found the other 2 outer sect disciples and said in a low voice, "Did you know? Just now, that Grandmaster's brother said he was in the foundation establishment stage and asked me to get him some food. Huang Bing, don't talk nonsense. The Grandmaster is a severed soul stage expert. His brother is at least at the severed soul stage. He must be teasing you." An outer sect disciple with fair skin and a strand of black hair on his forehead said, "Yang Jin, of course I know he's teasing me. That's why I came to you guys to get him something to eat." The outer sect disciple called Huang Bing said, "Wang Zhiqing, you usually have the most ideas, and you say you're the most knowledgeable. Then tell me, what should we prepare for the Grandmaster's brother?" Yang Jin said to the other outer sect disciple. Chapter 15. When Xiao Yu circled around the spiritual medicine garden and returned to the front of the row of thatched cottages, Wang Zhiqing and the other 2 outer disciples had already prepared a table full of fragrant dishes and a bottle of spirit wine that was not very high grade. Even though the food on the table was not good enough for a severed spirit realm brother, the 3 outer sect disciples who had yet to reach the gold core realm almost went bankrupt. In order to prepare this table of dishes, they had already used up all the spiritual grains and spiritual meat that the void inquiry stage gave them. They even used some of the medicinal herbs that were produced in this garden that could be used for cooking. "Senior, the dishes are ready." Huang Bing ran to Xiao Yu's side and said flatteringly, "Oh, so fast. Thank you so much. I haven't eaten for so long. My sense of taste has deteriorated." Xiao Yu swallowed a mouthful of saliva and quickly followed Huang Bing into one of the thatched cottages. The interior of the cottage was still quite bright. On a square table, there were all kinds of fragrant delicacies. With just a glance, Xiao Yu's appetite was ignited. He sat down on a bamboo chair and picked up a piece of vegetable that looked like a bamboo shoot with his chopsticks. He put it in his mouth and swallowed it without tasting it. Then he shouted, "Delicious! Delicious!" Actually, he did not taste anything at all. Maybe it was because he ate too quickly. "Don't just stand there. Let's eat together. I can't finish such a big table of dishes alone." Xiao Yu waved his chopsticks and said when he saw the 3 outer sect disciples staring at him nervously, "We're just outer sect juniors. How would we dare to sit together with a senior like you, Grandmaster? Please enjoy your meal. We are not hungry." Wang Zhiqing, who looked very smart, took a step forward and answered politely. Xiao Yu knew that these 3 disciples had some scruples because of his special identity. However, even though he did not take it to heart, they had prepared a big table of dishes for him. If he let them watch him eat, it would be a little too much and it would not suit his temper. So he threw his chopsticks on the table and said, "If you don't sit down and eat together, I won't eat either." Wang Zhiqing and the other 2 looked at each other, but they didn't dare to overstep their boundaries. They cupped their fists and said in unison, "Disciples dare not." Xiao Yu was at a loss for words. She could only pretend to be a senior and said, "This is an order. If you don't sit down and eat together, it's a lack of hospitality." Hearing this, Wang Zhiqing and the others felt helpless. They could only brace themselves and sit down. However, their hands trembled as they held their chopsticks. They had never sat with a severed soul expert before. Actually, I'm also in the foundation establishment stage, just like you guys. If I didn't get to know my brother Guiyun Fei, I would be in the same generation as you guys. Now that your Grandmaster Guiyun Fei isn't here, we can relax a little. Come, let's eat together. Xiao Yu is going to live here for a long time, so she wanted to have a good relationship with these neighbors. She didn't want to look lonely when there were people accompanying her. When the three disciples heard Xiao Lingyu's words, they looked at each other again. They were all very suspicious. Wang Zhiqing rolled his eyes and then smiled courageously. Then he grabbed the wine bottle on the table and poured a cup of spirit wine for Xiao Lingyu. He also poured half a cup for the three of them. Come, let's toast to Senior. I hope Senior can guide us more in the future. Wang Zhiqing winked at the other two, and the three of them raised their cups to toast Xiao Lingyu. Xiao Lingyu also picked up the wine cup, but after smelling the fragrance of the wine, she asked, "Is this wine suitable for cultivators in the foundation establishment stage?" Wang Zhiqing said, "It's suitable. Senior should know that the three of us are in the foundation establishment stage. If we can drink it, Senior can drink it even more." Xiao Lingyu nodded and then said, "Come, let's toast." What Wang Zhiqing and the other two never expected was that after drinking this cup of spirit wine, Xiao Lingyu actually didn't have time to drink a second cup before she passed out under the table. The three disciples were all dumbfounded. However, they couldn't be sure if Xiao Lingyu was really drunk, and they didn't dare to move. They could only stand there dumbfounded, waiting for Xiao Lingyu to wake up. Fortunately, this spirit wine wasn't very high grade. It was only enough to make cultivators in the foundation establishment stage drunk. Wang Zhiqing and the other two couldn't take out a spirit wine that could make cultivators in the foundation establishment stage drunk. It was Xiao Lingyu's first time drinking this kind of spirit wine that had a soul-numbing effect, so she couldn't get used to it and got drunk. If Wang Zhiqing and the other two drank a cup, although they would also get drunk, they wouldn't pass out. It was because of this that they only poured half a cup for themselves. After sleeping for 3 days, Xiao Lingyu finally woke up. His face was still red from the drunken stupor. He had woken up, but he hadn't completely digested the alcohol, especially the spiritual power in the wine. It made him feel as if there were waves of hot air flowing in his body. He had no choice but to immediately sit cross-legged and meditate. Xiao Lingyu cultivated the 9 Revolutions chaos spell. All along, he needed to absorb the chaotic energy of heaven and earth to cultivate, not spiritual energy or spiritual power. However, spiritual energy or spiritual power could also be transformed into chaotic energy. In fact, using the 9 Revolutions chaos spell could transform all the energy in heaven and earth into chaotic energy. This was also the high grade of the 9 Revolutions chaos spell. However, if one were to use other types of energy to strengthen their chaotic energy, the speed would be too slow, especially spiritual energy and spiritual power, which weren't of a high grade. Especially at the beginning of the cultivation of the 9 Revolutions chaos spell, in fact, they could only use the chaotic energy of heaven and earth to make rapid progress. This was because it was impossible for cultivators at this stage to absorb large amounts of spiritual energy or spiritual power, and they couldn't transform them in large amounts. Only after the first revolution of the 9 Revolutions chaos spell could they transform spiritual energy or spiritual power. Master had told Xiao Lingyu that it was best to cultivate alone, but now that the situation was special, he didn't have so many scruples. When he cultivated, his body would be wrapped in a layer of gray, chaotic light, which would also expose his cultivation realm. Wang Zhiqing and the other two were the most surprised because they could clearly feel that the brother of their grandmaster was in the foundation establishment stage. But the cultivation method he cultivated seemed to be a bit special. How could a foundation establishment stage cultivator become brothers with a spirit-severing stage expert? Wang Zhiqing and the other two were very puzzled. But no matter what the other person's cultivation was, he was still the brother of their grandmaster, so the three of them couldn't neglect him. However, their reverence for Xiao Lingyu also faintly reduced by more than half. Even if there was a spirit-severing stage expert protecting you, your own strength wasn't enough, so how could you expect a spirit-severing stage expert to protect you all the time? At this time, Wang Zhiqing and the other two also understood another point. That was why the brother of their grandmaster came here and not other high-level places. After Xiao Lingyu finished cultivating, he said apologetically to the 3 outer disciples, "I forgot myself just now. How long have I slept?" Senior, you have slept for 3 days. Wang Zhiqing said very politely. Oh, it's been 3 days. Xiao Lingyu slightly frowned and looked at the dishes on the table that could no longer be used. His face was full of regret. It's really a sin to waste your good intentions. I have some spirit stones here. Take it as a reward for your hospitality. As Xiao Lingyu spoke, he threw a few spirit stones on the table that he didn't even know the quality of. Wang Zhiqing and the other two originally wanted to refuse, but when they saw the fluorescence of the spirit stones, they knew that they were high-quality goods. They swallowed the words that were about to come out of their mouths. It was usually very difficult for foundation establishment stage cultivators to get spirit stones. Even if they got one, it would at most be low-grade spirit stones. They generally absorb the weak spirit qi in some jade stones to cultivate. After Xiao Lingyu left, Huang Bing asked with his mouth wide open, "What grade spirit stones are these?" It can't be middle-grade spirit stones, right? I can't believe I saw a mid-grade spirit stone. Yang Jin was also overjoyed. Wang Zhiqing was actually very surprised, but he was the first to recover. He slapped Huang Bing in Yang Jin's head and said, "You really don't know. Only high-grade spirit stones would have such a strong fluorescence and emit spirit qi in an unsealed environment. You don't even know this. High-grade spirit stones. A high-grade spirit stone is 100 middle-grade spirit stones. That's 10,000 low-grade spirit stones." Huang Bing said with his eyes wide open. He felt that his brain was a little confused. Why can't it be top-grade spirit stones? Yang Jin asked in shock. The color of top-grade spirit stones is restrained, and it won't emit spirit qi. A high-grade spirit stone can be exchanged for a low-grade spirit stone. If we have the corresponding cultivation method, even if we don't enter the intersect, we can still cultivate to the golden core stage, or even the nascent soul stage. Wang Zhiqing calmly analyzed. If we don't enter the intersect, why did we come all the way here? Yang Jin said doubtfully. Think about it carefully. What kind of life did we live at home in the past? What kind of life are we living now? Even if we enter the intersect in the future, I reckon our lives will still be very tiring and dangerous. Didn't we come to the void inquiry stage to make ourselves stronger? At least, we'll be stronger than those cultivators in the secular world. If we can become stronger without entering the intersect and then return to the secular world. Wang Zhiqing said with a smile. The three of them were all disciples of big clans in the secular world. They live a luxurious life and lived a luxurious life. They spent a lot of money and found all kinds of channels to enter the void inquiry stage when they were 16 or 17 years old. Unfortunately, their aptitude was very ordinary and they were not valued by the void inquiry stage. After cultivating for more than 10 years, they only managed to cultivate from the qi refining realm to the foundation establishment realm. Moreover, they had been staying in a medicinal garden. This made them miss the joy in the secular world and gradually lost their confidence and interest in cultivation. It wasn't that their willpower was not strong enough. It was just that they could not see any hope. But we can't go out either. Huang Bing said. Perhaps that senior can go out. Yang Jin said. The three of them had already discussed the idea of leaving the void inquiry stage and living in the colorful world countless times. Chapter 16. Huang Bing's expression became serious as he said, "He found me first and asked me to prepare food for him, so I should get two." Yang Jin said, "Most of the dishes and spirit wine on the table were provided by me. I also want two." It seems that I can only get one since I came up with the idea. However, the three of us have been together for a long time. Although we haven't gone through thick and thin together, at least we're like brothers. Naturally, there's no need to fight over spirit stones. One spirit stone it is. Wang Zhiqing smiled and took one spirit stone from the table. Huang Bing and Yang Jin originally thought that Wang Zhiqing would definitely not be happy, but the reality of the situation was beyond their expectations. However, they were naturally happy and immediately received the two spirit stones with great joy. Huang Bing asked, Brother Wang, you really don't mind? Huang Bing and Yang Jin knew what kind of person Wang Jiqing was. This person was definitely not a generous person, but a very shrewd person. Shrewd people were not willing to suffer losses. Wang Jiqing smiled and said, what is there to mind? If we serve that person well in the future, how many spirit stones will there be? Yang Jin agreed. That person looks very forthright. Also, from the fact that he can casually throw out 5 high-grade spirit stones, he must have a lot of spirit stones. How can a foundation establishment stage cultivator have so many spirit stones, and even high-grade spirit stones at that? Huang Bing asked in confusion. Wang Jiqing calmly explained, first of all, we can't be sure if he is a foundation establishment. Second, don't forget that he is martial ancestor Ji's brother. With such a spirit-severing stage brother, how can he not have spirit stones? Also, to be able to be brothers with a spirit-severing stage master, even if he is at foundation establishment, he must be extraordinary. Huang Bing said sincerely, let's serve him carefully in the future. In the following days, Xiao Lingyu wandered around the herb garden during the day, listening to the 3 outer court disciples introduce the herbs in the herb garden and learning very seriously. At night, in the dead of the night, he would meditate and cultivate alone in the study of the small courtyard. The spirit energy in the herb garden was very rich. The chaotic energy contained in the heaven and earth was also richer than other places. He only needed to constantly absorb and refine it with the chaotic energy in his body. It was worth mentioning that Huang Bing had been very close to Xiao Lingyu. Almost as long as Xiao Lingyu walked out of the courtyard, Huang Bing had been accompanying him like a little follower. However, ever since that time when he was drunk, Xiao Lingyu had never given these outer sect disciples any more spirit stones. This was because he already knew how precious and important those spirit stones were from the books he had read. He reckoned that his brother Ge Yunfei would definitely not be willing to see him squander those spirit stones, even though those spirit stones were not of much use to him. That night, Xiao Lingyu was meditating in the study as usual, while Wang Jiqing pulled Yang Jin into his room. After Yang Jin sat down, he asked straightforwardly, Brother Wang, why did you call me over? In fact, they usually didn't have much leisure time. For many years, they had developed the habit of looking after herbs during the day and cultivating at night. Cultivating was like rowing a boat against the current. If you don't advance, you will fall behind. Even outer court disciples like them knew this. Even if they didn't have much hope, it didn't mean that they would easily give up completely. Wang Jiqing narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice, I can confirm one thing. Yang Jin asked suspiciously, what is it? Wang Jiqing said, that martial ancestor Ji's brother is indeed only at foundation establishment. I thought it was something big. I'm sure of this. I've long noticed that you've tried to probe him many times, both openly and secretly. You've even sparred with him a few times under the pretext of seeking guidance. Yang Jin said nonchalantly, do you think we could defeat him if the two of us join forces? Wang Jiqing asked, I think it shouldn't be a big problem. If we can count Huang Bing in, we will definitely win. Yang Jin didn't think too much and followed the topic. We can't count Huang Bing in. That guy is as timid as a mouse. Besides, he has been sucking up to you recently. He doesn't dare to make a move at all. What? Make a move? What move? What do you want to do? Yang Jin didn't wait for Wang Jiqing to finish speaking. He stood up abruptly and glared at him. He seemed to feel that something was wrong. Lower your voice. Sit down. Wang Jiqing frowned slightly and shouted, Are you crazy? That person is martial ancestor Ji's brother. How dare you have designs on him? Yang Jin glanced at the door and slowly sat down. I'm not crazy. On the contrary, I'm very clear-headed. This is the outer area of the void inquiry stage. After we succeed, we can easily escape. If we want to hide, no one can find us. That person isn't a member of the void inquiry stage. He's just Ge Yunfei's brother. If something happens to him here, only Ge Yunfei will ask about it. Even though Ge Yunfei is a severed spirit realm expert, it will be extremely difficult for him to find us as long as we aren't extremely unlucky. Wang Jiqing said with a cold smile, Us? This is your idea. It has nothing to do with me. Yang Jin waved his hand and said, Hee hee. My good brother, do you dare to say that you aren't tempted at all? If you aren't tempted, I'm afraid you would have already left in a huff. That person has a storage belt with him. There must be countless spirit stones in it. Once we get those spirit stones, we can save a lot of time and improve our cultivation base quickly. I believe you can also see our future. Even if we enter the inner sect, we won't be valued. We might still be mediocre until the end of our lives. This time, it's definitely the best opportunity given to us by the heavens. Wang Zhiqing smiled and analyzed. But even if we succeed, we have to be able to walk out of this herb garden first. Yang Jin shook his head and said, "You don't have to worry about this problem. I've asked him before. He has Gu Yunfei's token, which allows him to enter this herb garden and that courtyard at will. By the way, we've never entered that small courtyard before. Perhaps there are a lot of treasures inside," Wang Zhiqing said with a sinister smile. "But he usually doesn't come out. We can't enter that courtyard either. Once he comes out, he'll be with Huang Bing," Yang Jin said with a frown. "So, Huang Bing is a problem. We have to get rid of him first," Wang Zhiqing said coldly. That's not good. Although he's a bootlicker, he has always had a good relationship with us. It's a little too cruel for us to deal with him. Besides, he's a Peak Late Foundation establishment realm expert. He's a little stronger than any of us. Even if we work together, we could defeat him, but it's still very difficult to kill him. Yang Jin was very surprised by Wang Zhiqing's suggestion at first. Then he calmly analyzed. Huang Bing definitely won't cooperate with us. Otherwise, I wouldn't want to get rid of him. As for how to get rid of him, it's actually very simple. We'll invite him to drink, and then suddenly ambush him. He'll definitely die, Wang Zhiqing said. I still feel that it's a little inappropriate. That mysterious person always gives me an unfathomable feeling. It's not necessarily safe for us to take such a risk, Yang Jin said hesitantly. Nothing is perfect. Opportunities are fleeting. No one knows when Gu Yunfei will take his brother away. Wang Zhiqing patted Yang Jin's shoulder and said meaningfully. Yang Jin pondered for a long time and finally nodded and said, "Okay, I'll go with you. But after it's done, we'll split 50-50. Moreover, we'll swear that we won't betray each other." That night, Huang Bing had just sent Xiao Lingyu back to the courtyard and was happily walking back to his room when he met Yang Jin halfway. "Brother Huang, today is the 12th year we've been in this medicinal garden. I just told Wang Zhiqing that the three of us should prepare a table of food and drink a few cups. How about it?" Yang Jin put his arm on Huang Bing's shoulder and said with a smile. "Of course that's good, but I won't bleed," Huang Bing said. "Don't worry, the food and wine are almost ready. Brother Huang won't have to spend a single coin," Yang Jin generously said. Huang Bing never thought that after drinking 2 cups of spirit wine and being drunk, Yang Jin and Wang Zhiqing would actually propose to get rid of the martial ancestor's brother. Recently, he had been very close to Xiao Lingyu, and the two of them had a very harmonious relationship. He was very satisfied with Xiao Lingyu's attitude and was very easy to get close to. Naturally, he wouldn't agree to Yang Jin and Wang Zhiqing's proposal and immediately refused. "Since we've been friends for so many years, I'll pretend that I didn't hear anything today. I hope that you won't mention it again in the future and don't have any improper thoughts." After saying this, Huang Bing stood up and walked towards the door. However, Huang Bing still underestimated the determination and ruthlessness of his two friends. Just as he reached the door, 2 sharp swords pierced through his body. Blood gushed out from his chest. He looked down at the 2 sharp swords in his chest and was very shocked and incredulous. Huang Bing slowly turned his body, while Yang Jin and Wang Zhiqing flipped their swords over at the same time. Waves of fierce energy wreaked havoc in his body and immediately exploded his body into pieces. Early the next morning, Xiao Lingyu walked out of the courtyard as usual. However, what surprised him was that Huang Bing, who usually waited for him to come out, didn't run over to talk to him and lead the way as usual. Perhaps he had something to do today. Huang Bing had already served him for so long. He couldn't possibly serve him all the time, right? Or maybe it's because I haven't given him anything in a long time and he's already tired of it. I'll look at the situation today and give them a few more spirit stones. Although they might not treat me sincerely, at least I'll have someone to talk to. After walking a few steps out of the courtyard, Xiao Lingyu saw Yang Jin running towards him with a very anxious look on his face. Senior, something happened to Huang Bing. Yang Jin ran to Xiao Lingyu and said while panting, "Oh, what happened?" Xiao Lingyu asked with a little concern. "You'll know when you come over and take a look," Yang Jin said as he led the way in front. Xiao Lingyu followed closely behind. However, he smelled the scent of blood at the door of a thatched cottage and saw Huang Bing's dismembered body. He quickly walked to the door and saw Huang Bing's miserable state, and his heart was a little stunned. Just as Xiao Lingyu was in a daze, two cold lights flashed and two sharp swords pierced towards his back. Ah! Chapter 17. Firstly, the two of them had launched a sneak attack from behind. Secondly, Xiao Lingyu was still in a daze at the sight of Huang Bing's miserable state. By the time he sensed the attack coming from behind him, he only had enough time to lean to the side and dodge one of the attacks. A sharp sword easily pierced through Xiao Lingyu's shoulder. In front of a sharp sword, the body of a Foundation establishment cultivator was as weak as tofu. Xiao Lingyu instantly understood that he had been tricked. Without waiting for the other party to make any moves, he immediately lunged forward. Enduring the pain of the sharp sword piercing through his body, he rushed to the front of the altar in the main hall. Yang Jin and Wang Jiqing were not too surprised that they did not kill Xiao Lingyu in one strike. When Xiao Lingyu lunged forward, they also raised their long swords and chased after him. Xiao Lingyu naturally wouldn't be so stupid as to waste his breath questioning others at this time. With a thought, a long sword appeared in his hand and blocked Yang Jin's sword. At the same time, Xiao Lingyu shouted loudly and used his bare palm to slap Wang Jiqing's long sword. The long sword's blade brushed past Xiao Lingyu's palm and pierced through Xiao Lingyu's shoulder, but it deviated from its original direction and pierced deeply into the wall. Xiao Lingyu's palm was also in great pain. The long sword's blade had left two deep gashes on his palm. However, he knew that this was a matter of life and death. A little pain was nothing. It was more important to not lose his life. He quickly kicked out, forcing Yang Jin to retreat. Then he slashed his long sword horizontally, forcing Wang Jiqing to withdraw his sword and retreat. In just two exchanges, Xiao Lingyu was already seriously injured. He knew that he had not cultivated for a long time and was not familiar with the moves and spells. Even if his cultivation level was similar to the other two, it would be difficult for him to deal with them at the same time. Huang Bing was killed by you too, right? Xiao Lingyu asked with a trembling voice. The pain from the sword wound on his shoulder made his entire body feel cold. When you die, you can ask Huang Bing. Wang Jiqing smiled coldly. After responding, the long sword in his hand flashed with cold light again, and a sword light burst out, rushing toward Xiao Lingyu again. Yang Jin only hesitated for a moment before following with his sword drawn. The two of them, one on the left and one on the right, kept swinging their swords as they advanced. Their sharp and well-practiced sword moves almost enveloped Xiao Lingyu from all directions. However, to their surprise, Xiao Lingyu did not waver in the slightest. Instead, she looked at them with hatred in her eyes. They did not retreat because of this. They felt that this was Xiao Lingyu's expression because she knew she was going to die. That kind of hatred was probably the hatred of despair. Unfortunately, when their swords were a foot away from Xiao Lingyu, they were blocked. A golden light flashed in the thatched cottage, and a golden shield blocked in front of Xiao Lingyu. The two swords stabbed into the shield, but immediately broke into two. If the two of them had not stopped in time, they would have crashed into the golden shield. What is this? Yang Jin asked in shock. It should be a talisman treasure. Fortunately, it is only a defensive talisman treasure, Wang Jiqing said calmly after recovering from his shock. This was indeed a talisman treasure, and it was the golden shield talisman treasure from last time. However, the energy within it had not been depleted, so Gu Yunfei left it for Xiao Lingyu to protect herself. Just as Yang Jin and Wang Jiqing finished speaking, the golden shield suddenly rushed forward. The two of them did not know the power of the talisman treasure, so they naturally did not dare to block it. They immediately dodged to the side. Xiaoling Yu was right behind the golden shield talisman treasure. The golden shield talisman treasure could not attack, but it could move at will. Under the control of Xiaoling Yu's thoughts, it protected Xiaoling Yu as they rushed out of the thatched cottage and into the small courtyard. Xiaoling Yu took out the token to open the protective restriction on the courtyard door. He rushed into the courtyard, hoping to use the restriction to block the two thieves outside. However, he was helpless as Yang Jin and Wang Ziqing followed closely behind him. When he rushed into the courtyard, the two of them also rushed in. Fortunately, the golden shield talisman treasure could provide protection. Xiaoling Yu held a good quality long sword in his hand and blocked left and right. Even if the two of them wanted to kill him, who had almost no fighting experience, it was not an easy task. However, the two of them had already forced him into a desperate situation. In this courtyard, even if he had the token that allowed him to freely enter and exit, he still needed to go through the main door. However, the main door was firmly guarded by the two of them. It was almost impossible for Xiaoling Yu to force his way out. There was no place in this courtyard that could be defended. After living here for so long, Xiaoling Yu already knew this courtyard like the back of his hand. He did not go into the house because it was smaller and would put himself in more danger. He also did not want to destroy the things in the house because of fighting. After all, Gu Yunfei had instructed him not to touch the things inside, let alone destroy them. Xiaoling Yu's front was blocked by the golden shield talisman treasure, and his back was leaning against the crooked ancient tree. Wang Ziqing and Yang Jin did not have any good ideas. After all, the golden shield talisman treasure's defensive power was not something they could break through. Moreover, it could move at will, and their attacks would be blocked as soon as they arrived. However, good things did not last long. After all, the golden shield talisman treasure could not continuously display its power. After blocking for a while, the spiritual light dimmed, and Xiaoling Yu needed to inject some energy into it to activate it again. Just as Xiaoling Yu was about to inject energy into the golden shield talisman treasure, the golden shield talisman treasure could not move freely. Wang Ziqing and Yang Jin's attacks finally achieved a breakthrough. Two sword rays shot out from their long swords, leaving two bloody holes in Xiaoling Yu's ribs. Xiaoling Yu was already seriously injured, and after being pierced by two sword rays, he felt his mind go blank and his body involuntarily retreated. What Xiaoling Yu did not expect was that just as he retreated, his body fell down as if he had stepped on air. Bang! Xiaoling Yu, who was seriously injured and could not quickly stabilize his body, after falling for a while, he fiercely smashed into the ground. What entered his eyes was pitch black, and there was only a foot of light under his feet, which was projected from above. Where was this? Wasn't he leaning against the crooked ancient tree in the courtyard? Xiaoling Yu was very puzzled, but he did not have time to think about it. He immediately forcefully channeled energy into his long sword, allowing the sword to emit light to expand his vision. Wang Ziqing and Yang Jin were a little stunned at this moment. After their sword rays pierced Xiaoling Yu, they also blasted the crooked tree behind Xiaoling Yu into sawdust. However, after that, there was a hole in the ground where the crooked tree was. The two of them saw Xiaoling Yu fall with their own eyes, but they did not immediately chase after him. This was because the golden shield talisman treasure, which was obviously very powerful, had fallen under their feet. They bent down at the same time to pick it up and grab it at the same time. At this moment, the two of them were a little embarrassed and hesitant. Should they let go or not? This golden shield talisman treasure was definitely not an ordinary item. For a cultivator in the foundation establishment stage, it was definitely an existence that they could only dream of. Since it was already in their hands, how could they just give it up? Brother Yang will take care of this treasure first. After the matter is done, we will deal with it. Wang Ziqing was more astute. He knew that before the matter was completed, the two of them could not fall out because of this, so he let go first. Yang Jin actually also had plans to let go, but since Wang Zhiqing had already said so, he naturally would not refuse. He smiled and put away the golden shield talisman treasure. Then the two of them walked towards the hole in the ground. The hole was not very big, but it was enough for the two of them to fall down together. However, there was only a small area below that had light, and the surroundings were pitch black. They did not know what mysteries lay inside. Naturally, they could not see Xiao Yu, who had already moved, so they did not dare to rashly take the risk. This matter is very serious. We already have no way out. If we can't get rid of him, we won't be able to leave this medicine garden. When Gu Yunfei comes here one day, only death will await us. Wang Zhiqing took a deep breath and said, "So, let's not dawdle any longer. Let's go down together." Yang Jin also said with a firm expression. Wang Zhiqing nodded at Yang Jin. Then the two of them jumped down into the hole together. After the two of them landed, they used the light of their swords to illuminate their surroundings like Xiao Yu. After a moment, they saw a tunnel, and then they carefully groped their way over. The tunnel was very narrow and very low. It could only allow one person to move forward like a cat. If one looked as far as they could, they would see nothing but pitch black. It was obvious that Xiao Yu had definitely entered this tunnel. However, Wang Zhiqing and Yang Jin were in a dilemma. They would definitely go on a chase after him, but who would be in front? The person in front would definitely have to face Xiao Yu's crazy counterattack, and the person in front would have to face his companions. It could be said that they were in an awkward position. This is actually not difficult. In any case, there is no one else in this valley. No matter how big of a commotion we make here, no one will notice. Although this tunnel is small, we can open it up a little. Although it will be a lot slower, it will definitely be very safe. The shrewd Wang Zhiqing said with a smile as he waved the sharp sword in his hand and slashed at the entrance of the tunnel. Unsurprisingly, the layer of soil at the entrance of the tunnel fell, and the entrance of the tunnel became much larger. Then, the two of them opened up the tunnel's width while advancing forward. Xiao Yu was indeed in this tunnel. However, he did not have the time to open up the tunnel's width. Instead, he endured the intense pain in his body and fled forward as fast as he could. At the same time, he continuously circulated the chaotic essence qi in his body to heal himself. After about an hour, Xiao Yu passed through this narrow tunnel and arrived at a karst cave. This karst cave was quite large, and the concentration of spirit qi inside was very dense. The spirit qi here was steaming like mist, almost in liquid form. In the center, there was a puddle formed entirely of spirit qi. In the center of the puddle, there was a milky white stalagmite that was 1 meter in diameter. However, the stalagmite seemed to have been cut in half by a sharp sword, and the top of the stalagmite was very flat. Chapter 18. Xiao Yu naturally did not have the time or the mood to cultivate here. There was no road ahead, and there were pursuers behind him. To him, this holy land of cultivation was now a hopeless situation. Although he had the help of the chaotic essence to heal his injuries, he could not calm down to meditate. His injuries recovered very slowly. He carefully looked around the karst cave and did not find anything out of the ordinary. Then, he tried to jump onto the stalagmite. Even if he was not very knowledgeable, he could imagine that this should be the spiritual eye of a spiritual vein. The stone walls around this karst cave were filled with spiritual stones and ores. When he came over just now, he had already noticed that although he was moving forward, he was actually moving downwards. Xiao Yu used all his strength to jump, but halfway through, his tendons and meridians hurt, causing him to fall down involuntarily. He did not reach the stalagmite, but fell into the pool of spiritual liquid. The spiritual liquid covered his entire body, and rich spiritual energy rushed madly into his body, constantly seeping into his body. If he was not injured at all, he could use the chaotic essence to repel the spiritual energy from entering his body. But now, he could only allow the spiritual energy to seep into his body from every corner of his body. But what surprised Xiao Yu was that the spiritual liquid was very gentle and did not need to be refined to gather in his dantian along his tendons and meridians. Also, it had a very strong healing effect. Everywhere it passed, Xiaoling Yu felt that every cell in his body was cheering, and it was very comfortable. The sword wounds that Xiaoling Yu had suffered previously were quickly healed with the help of the spiritual liquid. He did not think too much about it, since it was beneficial to him. He simply let go of it completely and actively circulated his power to absorb the spiritual energy into his body. The liquid spiritual energy circulated around his body, nourishing his flesh and meridians, and then gathered in his dantian. But because Xiaoling Yu's realm was not high, he could not refine such a large amount of spiritual energy in a short period of time. So, although the spiritual energy was gentle, it was actually not under his control. It circulated automatically, and then automatically gathered in his dantian. No, if this goes on, there will be too much spiritual energy, and my dantian will definitely explode. Then I will die. Xiaoling Yu recognized the danger. When his injuries were mostly healed, he actively circulated the chaotic essence to repel the spiritual liquid from invading his body. At the same time, he allowed the chaotic essence to flow into his dantian, sinking into the spiritual energy gathered in his dantian, causing it to circulate crazily in his dantian. The 9-revolution chaos formula mentioned that using chaos essence chi to transform other types of energy was to let the chaos essence chi seep into it and then spin it crazily. During the spinning process, the chaos essence chi would compress the other types of energy and turn them into chaos energy. But for Xiaoling Yu, his dantian, and when the liquid spiritual energy in his dantian revolved, it would naturally cause intense friction with the walls of his dantian. His dantian would expand and swell, and if he was not careful, it would explode. Wang Ziqing and Yang Jin finally arrived at the karst cave, but they did not see Xiaoling Yu. "Why isn't he here?" Yang Jin asked nervously. "No, he is here." Wang Ziqing pointed at the faint bloodstains on the ground and said with certainty. "Then where is he?" Yang Jin asked again. "Let's see if there are any hidden mechanisms, secret rooms, or secret passages. This place is a little strange." Wang Ziqing narrowed his eyes and said. After 10 minutes, the two of them carefully checked the entire karst cave, but did not find anything strange. Yang Jin, on the other hand, knocked out a few stones that contained low-grade spiritual stones. "There's so much spiritual liquid here, and you actually want to mine the ores. You should know that the spiritual energy in a drop of spiritual liquid far surpasses that of a low-grade ore," Wang Ziqing said with disdain. Yang Jin's face was a little embarrassed. He took out a wine bottle and poured out all the wine. He bent down and drank a bottle of spiritual liquid. His face was abnormally excited, but he did not dare to drink a mouthful. He should be hiding in the spiritual liquid pool. Wang Ziqing suddenly said, "It can't be. The spiritual qi here is seeping into our bodies. Foundation establishment stage cultivators like us don't dare to stay here for long. If we fall in here, it won't be long before our bodies explode." Yang Jin said, in surprise. Wang Ziqing did not speak. Instead, he put his finger into the spiritual liquid. Suddenly, a stream of liquid spiritual energy flowed through his finger and into his meridians. He then withdrew his finger and closed his eyes to feel it. After the spiritual liquid flowed through his body, he felt very comfortable. Finally, the spiritual liquid returned to his dantian and condensed into a ball. It was like a pearl in his dantian, quietly floating, motionless. This spiritual liquid has a very strong healing effect and is very gentle. However, it also has a very strong corrosive power. If we are in this pool, ordinary foundation establishment stage cultivators like us will definitely explode because we can't bear too much spiritual energy. But other than this pool, I really can't think of any other place," Wang Ziqing said quietly. "Then what do we do? Do we also go down?" Yang Jin asked. "We have no way out. If we don't get his token, We can't get out of this medicine garden. Of course, we can't go down. If we go down, our bodies will explode. But if he dies down there and the token sinks, it'll be difficult for us. We don't know how much spiritual liquid there is. It'll be difficult for us to collect all the spiritual liquid here. Wang Jiqing said with difficulty. It is very difficult, Yang Jin said with a frown. After pondering for a long time, Wang Jiqing suddenly grinned and said with a smile, I think I have a way. What is it? Tell me quickly. Yang Jin said eagerly. It's very simple. If we keep attacking the mountain walls and let the ores here fall into the spiritual liquid will overflow. If we bury the entire pool, that guy will naturally be forced out. Wang Jiqing said with a sinister smile. Haha, Brother Wang is really smart. This is a wonderful plan, Yang Jin praised. Without further ado, the two thieves began to move. They waved their swords, which emitted sword rays, and constantly attacked the ores around the cave. One by one, the ores fell into the spiritual liquid. Xiaoling Yu, who was still at the bottom of the pool, immediately sensed that something was wrong. He knew that the two thieves were coming and also guessed that they were insidious. However, he still didn't move. Instead, he cultivated even harder. In his heart, he kept shouting, faster, faster, faster. As long as the spiritual liquid in his dantian turned into chaotic energy, he would be able to rush out. Moreover, his strength would definitely be much stronger than before. But was there enough time for Xiaoling Yu? Yang Jin and Wang Jiqing continued to attack the cave with all their might. The spiritual liquid had already spread into the tunnel. This pool of spiritual liquid wasn't very deep. At most, it was 6 or 7 meters deep. It wouldn't be long before the two foundation establishment cultivators filled the pool with ores, and Xiaoling Yu would have nowhere to hide. From a moment Yang Jin and Wang Jiqing started to attack, 10 minutes had passed. Half of the spiritual liquid in the pool had already overflowed, but the two of them showed no signs of stopping. It was also at this moment that a burst of energy flew out from the pool of spiritual liquid. In the cave filled with spiritual mist, Wang Jiqing and Yang Jin saw a figure. Then, a gray sword ray flashed towards them. Wang Jiqing and Yang Jin stopped at the same time. They waved their swords and slashed with all their might, dispersing the gray sword ray. On the stalagmite in the center of the pool of spiritual liquid, Xiaoling Yu stood proudly. His clothes were in tatters, but he was full of energy. The sword in his hand was also clanging. At this moment, Xiaoling Yu didn't look like he was injured at all. Instead, he looked like he was in peak condition. This guy was seriously injured just now. He definitely won't be able to recover in such a short time. He's only strong on the outside. Let's attack together, Wang Jiqing shouted. Then, he slashed a sword ray towards Xiaoling Yu. Xiaoling Yu's lips curled into a disdainful smile. Then he jumped up. After dodging Wang Jiqing's sword ray, he slashed a gray chaotic sword ray in the air. Wang Jiqing naturally didn't dare to take the sword ray head-on. He immediately dodged. However, he heard a series of explosions behind him. The entire cave couldn't help but shake. Yang Jin was about to make a move, but he saw that Xiaoling Yu's gray sword ray had created such a commotion when it hit the mountain wall. This made him a little shocked. It was very difficult for a foundation establishment stage cultivator to have such a powerful attack. Your strength. Yang Jin was a little shocked. Thanks to you, I've already reached the golden core stage. I really have to thank you. If you hadn't forced me here, I'm afraid that I would have needed a few more years of cultivation to reach my current level. Xiaoling Yu said with a cold smile. Brother Yang, don't believe him. In such a short time, it's already good that he can recover from his injuries. There's no way he can reach the golden core stage. Wang Jiqing reminded Yang Jin loudly. You don't believe me? Xiaoling Yu's eyes narrowed. There was no longer any trace of a smile on his handsome face. After he shouted loudly, his entire body was wrapped in a gray, chaotic light. Then, an aura that far exceeded the foundation establishment stage surged out of his body. It swept past Yang Jin and Wang Jiqing like a gust of wind. Yang Jin and Wang Ziqing's expressions changed. They gritted their teeth and endured Xiao Lingyu's aura for a moment. Then, at the same time, they spat out blood and were sent flying. Their bodies slammed heavily into the rock wall and fell heavily. Golden Core Stage. How is this possible? Even Wang Ziqing was stunned. He couldn't even withstand Xiao Lingyu's aura. This meant that he and Xiao Lingyu were not on the same level. This was a little hard for him to accept. After all, the time was too short. Senior, I beg you, please don't kill me. This was all Wang Ziqing's idea. I was led astray by him. Humph. I hate people like you who can't take responsibility and betray your allies at the last moment. Xiao Lingyu didn't wait for Yang Jin to finish speaking. A chaotic sword ray shot out and sliced Yang Jin's head off. If Yang Jin hadn't been so frightened that he gave up resisting, Xiao Lingyu wouldn't have been able to kill him so easily. Chapter 19. You definitely won't let me go, right? Wang Ziqing struggled to stand up. However, Xiao Lingyu's aura was suppressing him, making him feel as if there was a huge mountain pressing down on his shoulders, making it hard for him to breathe. Of course I won't let you go. Instead of focusing on your cultivation, you came here to scheme against me. I've never offended you before. What are you doing if not seeking death? Xiao Lingyu said with a cold smile. He was not an indecisive person. He would never show mercy to those who deserve to be killed. If you can spare my life, I will swear my loyalty to you, to be your servant and never betray you. Wang Ziqing said sincerely with the last trace of hope in his heart. I don't need it. You are an untrustworthy person. You even killed Huang Bing, who has been with you for many years. Even if there is a soul oath, I can't believe you. Xiao Lingyu destroyed Wang Ziqing's last trace of hope and killed him mercilessly with his sword. Looking at the two corpses, Xiao Lingyu could only sigh in his heart. He did not want to kill them. After all, it was not easy for them to cultivate. When their mothers gave birth to them, they also suffered a lot. If they did not threaten him with death, Xiao Lingyu was willing to let them live. Xiao Lingyu was not a person who would be conflicted. He just felt sorry for the two of them for a while. Then, he moved their corpses to the courtyard. After that, he also moved Huang Bing's body that was torn into pieces. How to deal with these corpses became Xiao Lingyu's problem. After thinking for a while, Xiao Lingyu decided to bury them in the medicinal garden. The Void Inquiry stage was a big sect. It was estimated that the death of a few outer sect disciples would not cause any commotion. Besides, this medicinal garden belonged to Gu Yunfei. After burying the three corpses, Xiao Lingyu suddenly coughed out a mouthful of blood. His face turned purple. He quickly returned to the study room and meditated. After a long time, his qi gradually stabilized. In fact, he had not reached the Golden Core stage, or rather, he had not reached the first revolution of the 9-revolution chaos formula. He was still in the foundation establishment stage, but he was truly in the late stage of the foundation establishment stage. He, who cultivated the 9-revolution chaos formula, was absolutely an invincible existence among the cultivators of the same stage. The reason why he was no match for Wang Ziqing and Yang Jin before was firstly because he had not cultivated for a long time, and secondly, because he had not really stabilized in the 9-revolution chaos formula's chaos foundation establishment stage. The short period of cultivation in the spirit liquid pool had improved his cultivation by quite a bit. The chaos essence chi had transformed a large amount of spirit liquid into chaos energy, allowing him to finally stabilize at the chaos foundation establishment stage. Although they were both in the foundation establishment stage, a chaotic foundation establishment stage cultivator could release the aura of an aura's core stage cultivator and display the strength of an aura's core stage cultivator. This was one of the biggest advantages of the initial cultivation state of a 9-revolution chaos formula. At this moment, in Xiao Lingyu's dantian, there was a grayish ball of liquid energy the size of an egg. This was the sign of success in the chaotic foundation establishment stage. In addition to cultivating, Xiao Lingyu did not forget to help take care of the herb garden. He had consulted Huang Bing many times before and had read many books. Taking care of these low-grade spirit herbs was not a big problem for him. A year passed in the blink of an eye. During this time, Gu Yunfei did not come over, as if he had forgotten about his sworn brother. During this time, Xiao Lingyu had completed the chaotic foundation establishment stage and was ready to break through to the chaotic golden core stage. Although the chaotic golden core was fundamentally different from the golden core of a cultivator, the process and state of condensation were not very different. Xiao Lingyu carefully observed the state of condensation of a normal cultivator's golden core. Then, he picked a few herbs from the herb garden and began to refine pills. The pill that Xiao Lingyu wanted to refine was called the Spirit Strengthening Pill. It was a low-grade spirit pill. Although it was a low-grade spirit pill, it was very troublesome for a cultivator like Xiao Lingyu who had no experience in alchemy. Fortunately, he had the alchemy books in the study as a reference. After failing dozens of times, Xiao Lingyu finally managed to refine a batch of spirit-strengthening pills in the alchemy room using the alchemy furnace. Xiao Lingyu carried a few spirit-strengthening pills to the courtyard and went into the cave. The tunnel in the cave had been widened by Wang Ziqing and Yang Jin. In addition, Xiao Lingyu had been here many times, so he was familiar with the way. It only took him 10 minutes to reach the cave. The stones in the spiritual liquid pool had already been cleaned up by him. With the entire spirit vein delivering spiritual liquid to the spiritual liquid pool, the overflowing spiritual liquid had also been replenished. The entire spiritual liquid pool was not much different from when Xiao Lingyu first discovered it. Xiao Lingyu sat cross-legged on the stalagmite, as usual. After quietly adjusting his breathing for a few days, he finally began to form hand seals. First, he gave himself a Peiyuan elixir. Then, he slowly circulated the cultivation method for condensing the chaotic golden core. Once the golden core was condensed, it meant that he had successfully entered the first phase of the 9-revolution chaos formula. For ordinary cultivators, after the golden core stage, they would enter the nascent soul stage. However, the 9-revolution chaos formula was different. Xiao Lingyu had to stay in the golden core stage for a long time, but his strength would continue to improve. The stages in the cultivation world were divided into the following stages: Qi refinement stage, foundation establishment stage, golden core stage, nascent soul stage, out-of-body stage, spirit severing stage, combination stage, tribulation stage, and Mahayana stage. The 9-revolution chaos formula could be cultivated up to 3 phases in the cultivation world. The first phase was the golden core stage. The second phase was the nascent soul stage. The third phase was the immortal world stage. When he first entered the golden core stage, Xiao Lingyu's strength was not afraid of any golden core stage cultivators. The middle phase of the golden core stage allowed him to face nascent soul stage cultivators. The late phase of the golden core stage was equivalent to the out-of-body stage. When he first condensed the nascent soul stage, Xiao Lingyu's strength would not be worse than a spirit-severing stage cultivator. The middle phase of the nascent soul stage was equivalent to an ordinary cultivator's combination stage, and the late phase was equivalent to the tribulation stage. When he reached the chaotic convergence stage, Xiao Lingyu's strength at that time was enough to contend with a Mahayana stage expert who had passed the heavenly tribulation and had immortal spiritual power in his body. According to Xiao Lingyu's master, cultivators who cultivated the 9-revolution chaos formula could dominate the cultivation world when they reached the chaotic convergence stage. When they reached the late phase of the chaotic convergence stage, they would be invincible in the entire cultivation world. Each phase of the 9-revolution chaos formula was divided into the initial, middle, and late phases, but they all corresponded to a large realm for ordinary cultivators. It seemed very advantageous and easy to cultivate, but in fact, it was not. If one did not have a great opportunity, the difficulty of each phase of the 9-revolution chaos formula was far greater than that of ordinary cultivators. Even the initial, middle, and late phases of each phase of the 9-revolution chaos formula were more difficult than that of ordinary cultivators. The medicinal power of the spirit-nurturing pill had spread in Shaolin Yu's body, nourishing and protecting his tendons and meridians, and the cultivation method of condensing the golden core stage gradually began to accelerate. After this period of cultivation, the liquid chaotic energy mass in Shaolin Yu's dantian had expanded from the size of an egg to the size of a football. It was gray and hazy. The liquid chaotic energy mass spun continuously, and the spirit liquid in the spirit pool began to pour into Shaolin Yu's body. The impact of the spirit energy on Shaolin Yu's body became more and more violent. The spirit-nurturing pill was used by Shaolin Yu to protect his body and to share the impact on his tendons and meridians. Although the quality of the spirit-nurturing pill refined by Shaolin Yu was very average, it was barely enough for him. A large amount of liquid spirit energy flowed along his tendons and meridians into his dantian. It was affected by the chaotic energy mass and spun together with it, constantly being transformed by the chaotic energy. Fortunately, Shaolin Yu was very stable in the state of chaotic foundation establishment. He was not in a hurry to advance. Moreover, he usually used a lot of medicinal herbs to temper his body. Therefore, the simplest transformation of the entire cultivation method did not pose too much of a challenge to him. After an entire month, Shaolin Yu consumed 1/3 of the spirit liquid in the pool and finally succeeded in compressing a chaotic golden core the size of a rice grain in his dantian. Although this chaotic golden core was small, the chaotic energy contained in it was definitely stronger than that of ordinary golden core cultivators. The golden core of ordinary cultivators contained spirit energy, but spirit energy could not withstand a single blow from the chaotic energy. Shaolin Yu's chaotic energy could easily penetrate the defensive shield formed by the spirit energy released by golden core cultivators. After condensing the chaotic golden core, Shaolin Yu could be considered to have officially started cultivating the 9-revolution chaos formula. He could also be considered to have truly become a cultivator. Shaolin Yu was not complacent. After all, he had just completed the 9-revolution chaos formula. There was still a long way to go before he could reach the goal his master had given him. There were still many dangers and hardships to go through. After cultivating quietly in the herb garden for another 3 years, Shaolin Yu still did not see Gu Yunfei. However, he was not anxious. He knew that a few years was nothing to cultivators, especially severed spirit realm cultivators. Besides, as the disciple of the Void Inquiry Stage's sect master, Gu Yunfei was also an elite disciple of the entire immortal sect. He must be very busy. After Shaolin Yu stabilized his cultivation base at the chaotic gold core realm, he also studied a lot of chaos magic techniques unique to the 9-revolution chaos formula. His overall strength had improved a lot. What made Shaolin Yu a little depressed was that the giant snake still had not woken up. However, Gu Yunfei said that the snake would only be drunk for 5 years at most. Presumably, he did not have to wait for too long. After waiting for another month or so, Shaolin Yu took out the command token and left the herb garden. Firstly, he wanted to go out and inquire about the situation of his friends and family. Secondly, he wanted to go out and get some materials for him to continue improving his cultivation base and refine some magic treasures. Shaolin Yu did not head towards the headquarters of the Void Inquiry Stage. There were no markets or cities there. He walked slowly with his back facing the headquarters of the Void Inquiry Stage. In the study room of the small courtyard, there were many books that introduced the Flying Feather Continent. Through these books, Shaolin Yu learned that there was a cultivation city less than 1,000 li asterisk, 500 m per li, in front of him. There were many cultivation shops in the city. He could barter or use spirit stones to buy the things he wanted. After all, he had just completed the 1st revolution chaos formula. The materials he needed were actually not that rare in the cultivation world. His journey was safe and sound. After more than 10 days, he finally arrived at the cultivation city. During the journey, he also met many cultivators. However, he did not interact with them at all. Chapter 20. From the long line of people waiting to enter the city, it could be seen that Taiyang City was definitely more prosperous than Shaolin Yu had imagined. The cultivation resources stored here would definitely be an eye-opener for Shaolin Yu. When Shaolin Yu was on Earth, he was a law-abiding student. Now that he wasn't very powerful, he naturally obediently waited in line to enter the city. After waiting for close to an hour, Shaolin Yu was finally less than 10 meters away from the city gates. There were only 10 cultivators in front of him. When the 10 people in front of him turned into 5, a light breeze suddenly blew, and the 5 people in front of him turned into 6 people. In front of him was a burly man, but at this time, he turned into a petite woman wearing a purple gown. It was very obvious that the woman had cut in line. The cultivators in front didn't say anything. After all, she hadn't cut in front of them. However, the cultivators behind them all started to criticize her. Shaolin Yu was in the most awkward position. Originally, there was only one more person, so he had to wait a little longer. This didn't matter to Shaolin Yu. He wasn't in a hurry. However, everyone was looking at him. It seemed like he should be the one to step forward and ask the woman to obediently wait in line. What's wrong with that guy? Someone cut in front of him, but he doesn't even dare to fart. Just look at his cowardly appearance. It's obvious that his cultivation is too weak, so he doesn't dare to cause trouble. What a coward! Those who cut in line are detestable. Those who condone those who cut in line are detestable. Discussions continuously sounded behind Shaolin Yu, causing his face to heat up. He glanced at the brightly armored city guards at the city gates. However, they completely ignored this matter. This was because this matter really had nothing to do with them. They were only responsible for collecting the entrance fee and interrogating the cultivators entering the city. They had no obligation to help maintain order. Shaolin Yu was forced to cough twice under pressure. Then, he patted the woman's shoulder. The woman acted as if nothing had happened. After turning around, she blinked her large eyes and asked, "What's the matter?" Although the woman wasn't very tall, only reaching Shaolin Yu's shoulder, she was very beautiful. Her cheeks were white and tender, and her lips were red. She even had small dimples on her cheeks. Her nose was jade-like, and her eyes were especially lively and beautiful. It was as if she could speak words that could melt people. Shaolin Yu was stunned. It wasn't that he hadn't seen beautiful women before, nor was it that his immunity to beautiful women was weak. When he first saw a peerless beauty like Jiang Lanyue, he wasn't too shocked. But now he was a little stunned. This woman actually looked somewhat similar to Jiang Lanyue's. "What's the matter?" the woman asked again. Only then did Shaolin Yu come back to his senses. He secretly mocked himself. There were too many people who looked alike in this world. Jiang Lanyue was a person from the God realm. She was as proud as a white swan. This woman was a person who cut the queue in the cultivation world. How could the two of them be related? Cough, cough. Shaolin Yu coughed twice again. He was ready to lecture the woman. "Uncle, is your throat uncomfortable? Are you going to the city to buy medicine to treat your illness?" The woman asked innocently. Cough, cough. Shaolin Yu coughed again, but this time he was really coughing. The woman's words made his throat dry up. "It seems like your illness is quite serious. Uncle, is this your first time in Taiyang City?" The woman asked again. Shaolin Yu took a deep breath and said, "First of all, I'm not sick. Second of all, do I look very old? Third of all, whether or not it's my first time in Taiyang City has nothing to do with you. Also, if you're not sick, then why are you coughing? I'm calling you uncle out of politeness. You can't mess with me. If this is your first time in Taiyang City, perhaps I could be a free guide for you." The woman didn't wait for Shaolin Yu to finish speaking. She seemed to know that if Shaolin Yu continued speaking, he would question her about cutting the queue. Forget it, forget it. Shaolin Yu tactfully shut his mouth. This little girl was very eloquent and intelligent. He was definitely no match for her. He should just let her be. After all, they were about to enter the city. Although the cultivators behind had complaints, No one came up to drag the little girl out. At most, they just looked at Xiaoling Yu with disdain. The little girl was very generous. She directly threw a piece of high-grade spirit stone to the city guard. She even said that there was no need for change. She said that she would pay for all the cultivators behind her. This action immediately silenced the cultivators behind her. Although 2 pieces of low-grade spirit stone wasn't a lot to pay for the entrance fee, it was still acceptable to save a little. A piece of high-grade spirit stone was worth 10,000 low-grade spirit stones. It could help 5,000 cultivators pay the entrance fee. Moreover, there were only a little more than 1,000 people behind her. The city guard was naturally happy to do so. She was so generous, but her cultivation was only at the early stage of the Golden Core realm. This made Xiaoling Yu feel that this little girl might have an extraordinary background. Therefore, he didn't want to get too entangled with her. After entering the city, he saw that the little girl was walking straight ahead. On the other hand, he turned a corner and walked to the left. The city was very safe because there were city guards inside. Ordinary cultivators wouldn't dare to cause trouble here unless they wanted to be hunted down by a large group of city guard experts. In most cases, people wouldn't dare to release their spiritual senses to spy on other people's cultivation. They were afraid that they would violate the taboo of some experts. Everyone lived in peace. The city wasn't very noisy either. Cultivators rarely hawked or made a ruckus on the streets. One day passed by very quickly. Xiaoling Yu bought a lot of medicinal ingredients for concocting pills. Most of them could be used to concoct mid-grade spirit pills. If he could successfully concoct these pills, they would be of great help to his cultivation in the chaotic gold core realm. Similarly, he also bought some materials for refining magic treasures, preparing to forge some magic treasures for himself. At night, Taiyang City was as bustling as during the day. Generally, there was no night curfew in cultivation cities. Shops were open as usual, and cultivators were walking on the streets as usual. Xiaoling Yu went to the center of the city. Here, he saw the lofty and majestic building of the city lord's mansion. There was also a large square. In the center of the square, there was a stone tablet that was over 100 zhang asterisk 33 m per zhang tall. On top of it, there were 2 bold and powerful words. Void Inquiry Stage. This stone tablet indicated that Taiyang City was actually under the control of the Void Inquiry Stage Immortal Sect. On the opposite side of the city lord's mansion, there was an extremely majestic 3-story building. Even though it only had 3 floors, it was no less than 30 zhang asterisk 33 m per zhang tall. Moreover, the side facing the city lord's mansion was over 200 zhang asterisk 33 m per zhang wide. However, this wasn't the thing that attracted Xiaoling Yu's attention. What really made Xiaoling Yu want to go closer and take a look was that there was a huge screen on the 2nd floor of the building. It looked just like a huge screen that was a few hundred inches wide on Earth. When he got closer, Xiaoling Yu first glanced at the signboard of the 3-story building. On top of it, there were 5 words that were gilded in gold. Heaven Do Auction House. So it's an auction house. No wonder it's built in such a bustling area. Moreover, it's so majestic. Xiaoling Yu understood. Then, he looked at the huge screen again. He knew that it was not a high-tech product. Instead, it was an extremely powerful illusion technique. On the huge screen, pictures of various cultivation treasures were constantly scrolling. There were only a few introductions attached. The general idea was that these treasures would be auctioned later so that everyone would know what to expect. More and more people gathered in front of the auction house and the square in front of the city lord's mansion. Everyone was pointing at the huge screen and whispering among themselves. Through the undisguised discussions of some cultivators, Xiaoling Yu understood the situation after stopping for about 10 minutes. It turned out that the Heaven Do auction house was preparing to hold an auction tomorrow. At that time, a large amount of precious cultivation materials and finished products would be put up for auction. Many cultivators were rubbing their hands in anticipation. Xiaoling Yu was a person who did not like crowds. However, he was also a person who was filled with curiosity. Since he had nothing to do, and there was nothing important for him to do, he decided to stay and stare at the treasures displayed on the huge screen. He took it as an opportunity to increase his knowledge. However, as he looked at them, his calm heart began to stir. This was because there were a few things that were very helpful to his cultivation of the 9-revolution chaos formula. One of them was even one of the materials that he had to prepare to break through to the nascent soul stage. Cultivating the 9-revolution chaos formula made Xiao Lingyu different from the vast majority of cultivators in the cultivation world. The materials he needed were not commonly seen in the cultivation world. However, they were items that ordinary cultivators did not need or like to collect. This had both advantages and disadvantages. The advantages were that no one needed them, so the prices would not be too high. The disadvantages were that most people did not like to collect and search for them. These types of items rarely appeared in the market. The more Xiao Lingyu looked, the more he felt that he had to participate in this auction. He had to do everything he could to obtain the items he needed. Fortunately, Gu Yunfei had left him a lot of spirit stones. Although it was not enough for him to bid for all the treasures he had his eyes on, if combined with the large amount of spirit liquid he had prepared before, everything should not be too big of a problem. The starting prices of the treasures were all displayed on the huge screen. Although the final prices would be much higher than the starting prices, Xiao Lingyu could at least obtain a few of them. Uncle, are you also going to participate in this auction? Just as Xiao Lingyu was secretly calculating, his shoulders suddenly sank and a cool breeze blew past him. Xiao Lingyu knew that it was the little girl. He secretly cursed his bad luck and turned around. He smiled and said, "I want to buy some medicine to treat my cough. It's good that there is medicine to treat it. I'm just afraid that there is no medicine to treat Uncle's illness," the little girl said casually. Xiao Lingyu gritted his teeth in anger. However, he could not fly into a rage because of this. He walked directly into the auction house, but the little girl followed behind him. "Why are you following me?" Xiao Lingyu stopped and asked. "I'm going to reserve a seat first," the little girl said confidently. Xiao Lingyu was also going to reserve a seat, so the two of them were going the same way. It would be inappropriate for him to blame her for following him. What made Xiao Lingyu even more depressed was that the two of them had reserved seats one after the other. Naturally, their seats were next to each other. After the little girl left, Xiao Lingyu requested to change seats, but he was rejected by the Heaven Do auction house. He waited in the plaza for an entire night. During this time, other cultivators had gone to restaurants or tea houses to pass the time. However, Xiao Lingyu did not want any accidents to happen, so he waited in the plaza of the city lord's estate. Xiao Lingyu had read many novels back on Earth. Restaurants and tea houses were the easiest places for accidents to happen. Early the next morning, the melodious sound of a bell rang through the air. The Heaven Do auction house's auction had officially begun. Cultivators who came to participate in the auction could use the jade medallion they received when they reserved a seat. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.